We're about a week out from one of the most consequential elections in American history and probably the most important election in our lifetimes. Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. And the most important thing that any one of these candidates can do in order to get more votes is to get their message out. Well, we've seen some of the most dramatic censorship in the past couple of weeks, notably the New York Post. It is the oldest newspaper that's never been in uninterrupted circulation. The fourth biggest in the country is still, as far as I can tell, suspended on Twitter for a story we now know to be true. Now, there's a lot in this story about Hunter Biden that we haven't necessarily confirmed, but there are emails, they're suspect. We've got a whistleblower, a man named Tony Bobulinski, who has now come out and said he's worked with the Bidens and he knows they were doing this nefarious stuff. Censored. How is Donald Trump supposed to win when he has got the media and big tech set up against him? Maybe he will. We don't know for sure. But we have a very special guest tonight, Ryan Hartwig, who was a content moderator for Facebook, who leaked a bunch of documents to Project Veritas. You also interviewed with them and just basically laid it all out, exactly what you could do, what they were doing. And I asked you just a moment ago, you would say election interference.
Yeah, I think that's a valid phrase to describe what Facebook is doing. I mean, so just to set it up for you, in 2016, Trump won the election. And in 2017 is when Facebook contracted Cognizant for this project.
So we'll jump into it. Yeah. So obviously, you know all about this stuff. There's a bunch of documents out in front of you. And I got to say, like, the first little conversations we had before the show went live, it sounds crazier than even I realize and scarier. You started mentioning, like, what qualifies it. An influencer, the swears you're allowed to use against people and why you aren't allowed to use certain swears. This is weird stuff. So, of course, this should be interesting, too, because, as you know, Ian Crossland's chilling.
Hey, guys.
But as we mentioned the other day with Alan Bakari, Ian was a co-founder of Minds.com, which is one of the most prominent. I don't like saying alternate, social media platform, but Minds is a pretty big. It's got a couple million users. Minds.com is pretty prominent in terms of not one of the big three social media networks. You moderated for them as well.
Yeah, I did a lot, just like Ryan. Similar, probably, to what you did.
I think the difference is you weren't purposefully targeting people based on their politics to remove them.
I was purposely not targeting.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll get into all this, and then of course we've got Sour Patch Lids producing, and
hello,
she'll be hanging out, chiming
in.
Hi. But I think, look, we've got a lot of stories in the news. I think we should just jump right in because we are about a week and a half away from this election. About 50 million people, that's my understanding, have already voted. These people can't change their votes. And that's one of the craziest things. They changed the rules. They put up all this early voting. They got all this mail-in voting. I'm willing to bet there's a lot of people right now who are learning things they couldn't have. Like, it was very otherwise. Let me rephrase this. There's a lot of people who are just now learning things. Information that was probably suppressed. I bet there's a lot of people who watched that debate the other night. And when Donald Trump said, your family was making a ton of money off these deals, these interviews, or these emails, these meetings. People want to know your brother made millions in Iraq. Someone probably said, whoa, what is that? And they couldn't hear that story because Twitter and Facebook were actively censoring it. They may have already voted. And now they're sitting there saying, oh no, I already voted for this guy. This is why censorship is so crazy. And it's going to have a huge impact in the next 10 or so days. So we're here with Ryan Hartwig. You were a moderator, a content moderator for Facebook.
Yeah.
What did you do? What is that?
Yeah. So as a content moderator, I mean, we see the most vile things that you can imagine that are on the internet. So there was a training for a month and they threw us on the production floor and we would be seeing, incest videos, snuff videos. I was working for a time, the Spanish queue in Latin America. So I'd see a lot of cartel violence, beheadings, throat slittings, pornography. So everything that's horrible on the internet, that's what I would take down and delete.
Yeah. So I've heard a lot of people get like PTSD from watching these videos all day, every day. I have to imagine that's messed up stuff, huh?
Yeah, like there's at the beginning in the Spanish queue, I'd get more like gross stuff, more graphic violence, more cartel violence. But towards the end, when I switched over to the North American side, I didn't get that as much. We would get some child pornography as well. But some of my coworkers, I was just talking to one the other day who has like PTSD symptoms. But they did have counselors on site, counselors that would be coaching us and giving us techniques. So I don't feel like I really had too much PTSD. Most of the time I didn't bring it home at night. But yeah, it is a tough job.
Ian's messed up. He's gone. I'm
Dude, I was going
Totally
crazy.
crazy.
What was your schedule like?
So they had quite a few different shifts. Mine was mainly the day shift, but like I'd hate to have like the night shift, like having to see that kind of stuff, because I think your brain's different like during the night shift, how it interprets things. So we had all shifts, yeah.
So what would you do? Would you delete videos, delete posts, or what?
Yeah, I would delete videos. I would delete groups, pages. I monitored the Mexican presidential election in 2018. So there was about 200 of us on the Spanish side, and we were monitoring the Mexican presidential election. But yeah, I could take down whole groups, pages, videos, posts, comments for Facebook and Instagram.
First simple question. In your experience, having worked at this company, taking down groups, pages, videos, did you feel there was a political bias?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Against what political group?
Against conservatives.
That's just that simple.
Plain and simple. Like,
There it is.
I mean, the first year before the Covington law firm did an audit against Facebook, they were blatant. Every time Trump gave a speech, even the State of the Union, they're like, "Hey guys, watch out for hate speech stemming from Trump."
Wow.
For everything he said. And then, I mean, I added by May of 2019, and we can go through the timeline at some point. But yeah, I mean, I'd made a list before I even decided to reach out to like journalists or Project Veritas. I made a list of about 20 examples of bias that I'd seen, and then that list just grew and grew. And so by the time I went public 4 months ago, I mean, the list is like I have 30 plus clear-cut examples of bias. And this is why Congressman Matt Gaetz, could take the evidence I gave him, and he was able to give that to the DOJ. And because of that, there's a criminal referral to the DOJ for Mark Zuckerberg.
Criminal?
Yeah, criminal referral. This is not civil. This is criminal.
Why is it criminal?
Because that referral was for alleged perjury. Because in April of 2018, Zuckerberg testified that they do not censor political speech.
And they do.
They sure do.
Yeah.
So what's an example of some? Did you ever personally remove American conservatives?
Yeah. So, for example, just a quick example, like there's a viral video in summer of 2018 where this Trump supporter got attacked in a restaurant. He was a kid, like 16-year-old kid.
Was it the splashed in the face thing? Like
I
a
think
drink?
It might have been. Yeah, I think he might have splashed his drink on him. And so Facebook said, hey, well, there was cursing in that video towards a minor, so delete the whole thing. And they even knew it was a viral video. They said, hey, we know this is a viral video showing a Trump supporter being attacked, but because there's cursing, delete the whole video, which kind of fits the policy. It's kind of a gray area in the policy. Like, we don't allow cursing in a minor, nor that's person to person. So if I'm on Facebook attacking a minor or cursing at the minor, that's different than just sharing a video with a neutral caption. And in some of those videos, the curse words were even bleeped out.
Wow.
So
how would you describe yourself politically? Are you conservative?
Yeah, I think more conservative, more like libertarian. Yeah.
So when you were there, actually, let me ask, how long were you there for doing this job?
Yeah, I was there for just under 2 years.
Wow, you were there for a while.
Yeah.
Didn't it get to you? You're like, I'm deleting this very important stuff that like is important for people to know.
Yeah, it did get to me, and that's why I started making a list on my own. Like, hey, here's some examples that I saw. But like the policy is very nuanced. So to the average person who's content moderator, it might not stick out, but it might not be too obvious. But like once you dig down into the policy, you're like, hey, this is baked into the cake. It's not just a couple of rogue moderators who are deleting Trump content. It's built into the policy.
What about leftist content that you think should have been removed that they told you not to remove or allowed to stay? Did you see a lot of that?
So I don't know, there's a few examples of that. I mean, obviously the most clear-cut example I have is there was a post in 2017, actually. I wasn't there at the time, but I could go back and see a post from 2017, and they're clearly saying that Antifa is not a hate organization. But it's funny because in the post, they're like, hey, there's a bunch of protests being organized in like 9 American cities. There are alleged ties to Antifa. Please remember that Antifa is not a hate organization.
Wow.
So, I mean, yeah, I can definitely see them protecting leftist viewpoints when it comes to protests, topless protests, when there's females protesting, or if there was a protest called Grab Them by the Ballot that showed a bunch of females naked protesting Trump. A play on words for the Grab Them by the...
Right.
Yeah, what Trump said.
That Trump line, yeah.
And so...
that was allowed.
They would allow it. So they make newsworthy exceptions whenever they want to change the policy at their whim.
So are they do you think they swung any elections? Do you think they swung 2018's midterms or what?
2018 was a trial run. So, so Facebook told us, and the word on the street there at Facebook was, hey, we brought all the content moderation to the U.S., which is very expensive, by the way. It was like a $200 million 3-year contract. So they brought all these jobs to the U.S. so they could keep it closer on the election. And the reason they gave was because Russia interfered in the 2016 election. So that was the whole basis for them bringing thousands of jobs to the U.S. was, hey, Russia interfered in 2016. We messed up. We're trying to fix this. But in 2018, we had a training deck just for the 2018 midterms. Excuse me. We had a training deck. So they said, hey, flag any content that's election related. If it's meets certain criteria, flag it with a VI, which goes directly to the Facebook queue, to Facebook employees. So, and then just this past fall, they were like, they sent us a message saying, we urgently need visibility into conversations about the Democrat debates when the primaries. So even stuff that's not violating, they want to know what's going on. We're their eyes and ears, because without us flagging trends, like I was flagging this past January and December, I was flagging like Boogaloo and Civil War was trending. So we flagged trends to them, and Facebook,
so you're not just removing stuff. You're actually like scouting intel and giving them information on what people are talking about.
Exactly.
Interesting. Yeah. Alan Bakari, for those that aren't familiar, we had him on the show. He's a journalist, a tech reporter for Breitbart, and he's been covering a lot of this. He mentioned there's this program where they're trying to pull people to the center. Have you heard about this at all?
I think I heard mention of it on the interview on Tuesday. So they're trying to pull people to the center.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you didn't come across anything like that in your work.
Dick, actually, when I talked to the policy manager, Sean, I had a lot of conversations with him. He was in charge he was a cognizant employee, but he can make decisions for like the entire, all the staff at the Phoenix location. So he can make a decision for 1,000 workers about the policy. And so I asked him about that, and he's like, we try to like segregate people, like-minded people together to prevent more. Yeah, that's why
they're tribalizing people on purpose.
Yeah.
Why?
He said like to prevent, I don't know, maybe
fights,
prevent conflict or whatnot. Because I raised up Civil War to him, the trending Civil War. This was during the impeachment, and people were talking about Boogaloo, which kind of means Civil War.
Right.
He's like, that's great. Like, keep on sending me these jobs. Facebook really wants visibility, wants to know what's going on. He's like, if Facebook had identified some of these trends in 2016, then they would have been glad to know what the trends were in 2016 when Trump won.
The thing I'm curious about when hearing, Alan was saying that basically what they're trying to do is they were trying to figure out why people who are far right became more moderate, regular conservative or whatever, and they wanted to find whatever content they were viewing and give them more of it. So I'm wondering did they ever come to you and say, this content clearly breaks the rules? Like, I understand you mentioned the leftist protest, but I'm wondering if there was other examples where they said these things get a special exemption, like straight up told you don't get rid of this kind of content.
I'm trying to think of some examples like that, because I know they gave newsworthy exceptions, like if there were celebs opposing abortion in Alabama and they said something that violated the policy, then Facebook gave them a pass. We can go back to that later if you'd like, discussing abortion. But so they gave specific newsworthy exceptions to allow promotion of leftist ideologies. But as far as what you're saying, like, is there a type of content we're looking for? They did say look for right-wing extremism globally that might lead to violence. And they did call out Spain. They said, hey, in Spain there's a separatist nationalist movement involving with the Basques. Look out for violence stemming from that. So in a way, they did try to by asking the content moderators, like thousands of them, to look for certain things. Like we get bored. We see hundreds of posts a day. We probably do 100, 200 jobs a day. So by feeding us information, by telling us to look for certain things, it kind of sways things a certain way.
Were your coworkers progressive or leftist or what?
Some of them were right wing. Some of them were more conservative. There's 2 guys I worked with who were actually in the original video with Project Veritas, Jose Moreno and his friend, and we had conversations. I sat with them towards the last couple months at work. So there was a pretty diverse group of people, but all the leadership I noticed were more left leaning.
Yeah.
So Sean Browder, for example, was a huge Bernie Sanders supporter.
The reason I ask is because, when I worked for some of these media companies, it seems like their goal is to hire people who are progressive, left-leaning, and then let them do their thing. You know, if they don't need to tell you to go after conservatives if you're already biased, you know. So that's why I asked. But it doesn't seem like they were doing that. It doesn't seem like they were hiring people. You know, they're just hiring. It seemed like they were hiring regular people.
I think for promotions, I think they definitely did take that into account. And what's crazy too is the summer after I started, that June or July, they actually made us link our personal Facebook accounts to continue working.
Wow.
Why?
And some
were they tracking you?
Rough.
They said the excuse was so that we didn't accidentally action our friends' content. Like, what's the probability,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So it freaked a lot of people out because a lot of people didn't have a Facebook account. But yeah, I applied for a promotion a couple of times, never got it. I applied to the policy team, with the same team with Sean Browder, and I have a degree. And a lot of these people were young, like in the early 20s, fresh out of high school, didn't have a degree. So I think for promotions, they definitely did take ideology into account.
Interesting. Do you feel like they, because of your politics, or just because you didn't fit in with like their culture, they didn't give you a promotion, or they held you back, or what?
Yeah, I think it's probably the politics about it. I mean, they in the interviews they said, hey, as a part of the policy team, you're going to be interfacing with the client a lot. So I mean, if you're a higher up, if you're hiring someone for the policy team and you know they're going to be interacting a lot with the client, why would you promote a right wing or conservative person? If you're trying to protect,
it's really similar to what I was told when I worked for Fusion. Side with the audience. Look, the people who come to us are progressive, therefore we give them, you know, we want to give them what they want, and so that seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Based on what you were doing, I asked you already. Do you think you think they swung an election? Do you think what they did helped the Democrats win in the midterms in 2018?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I mean, they just think about it's about gathering information and intel. So I mean, you have, for example, this is an example. This past fall, you had the Ukraine whistleblower, and Facebook's guidance was to delete that. And I was on the front lines when that happened.
Well, you were at Facebook.
Yeah.
So we can't say the Ukraine whistleblower's name on YouTube right now.
Such nonsense.
Yeah.
This is active censorship. If we say this person's name, they will cut the feed. I have videos on YouTube that are in this weird state that doesn't exist anywhere else on YouTube. So what happens is if you break the rules on YouTube, they'll delete your post. If it's not a rule breaking thing, but it's like borderline and they're like, well, look, they'll do what's called forced private. Your video will change to private so only you can see it and you can't change it back. But you don't get a strike. It's not banned. It's just one of the steps they have. What they did to my videos on the Ukraine whistleblower, this is the guy who started the whole impeachment process. They are almost just a graphic on the website. When I go into my videos, I have one video on my main channel, one on my second channel, Timcast and Timcast News. When I go into my videos, the videos are there. You can see them, but you can't click anything. When the mouse goes over it, it doesn't change. You know,
So weird.
When you hover over a link, it like turns into a little finger about to click it. Nothing. And I click and nothing happens. That's what they do. So when all this was going down, I went on Facebook and I immediately started, posting this guy's name like crazy.
Yeah.
Now here's the crazy thing. I never got any warnings. I never got any like notifications.
Yeah.
The posts would just disappear.
What?
That was you.
Yeah, that was us. So I actually discovered it, and we actually sent it to Facebook, so Facebook finalized the policy. So originally, and this goes back to 2018 because, if Facebook can, essentially, his name was a Republican talking point. Rand Paul tried to mention his name.
It was on Fox News. He said it in the Senate.
Yeah, exactly.
A senator named this guy because of his potential ties to Democrats, his lawyers, the statements they made. And there was also a statement made about him that had nothing to do with impeachment or whistleblowing.
Yeah.
You could not say his name no matter what. There was a C-SPAN video. A senator, an American senator on the Senate floor said to the American people, this guy and this guy were overheard saying they wanted to remove Trump. Had nothing to do with the whistleblowing. That video got removed from YouTube.
So really, it wasn't to protect him as a whistleblower. It was deleting a Republican talking point. That's what it was, plain and simple. So when we first discovered it, I ran across this job, and I was talking to my coworker Skylar about it, and we're like, "Hey, what should we do? This guy's, a whistleblower or whatever." And so we raised it to our local policy team, and they made an interim decision for the next 6 hours to delete it under our privacy policy because they thought that he was undercover law enforcement. And I have screenshots of that exact same policy.
Wait. They thought the whistleblower was an undercover law enforcement?
Yeah.
I mean, he literally worked for the CIA.
Yeah.
He wasn't undercover.
No. And so that was the initial decision from our local policy team. And then 6 hours later, Facebook said, okay, we'll continue deleting it, but we're going to delete it under this generic part of the policy called coordinating harm. So there's nothing in the wording of that policy at all that relates to whistleblowers. So it was just delete coordinating harm other. So it's just some generic part of it. But I have, conversations. I was recording, filming at the time when I had those conversations with Skylar and my other coworkers. I have a really good analysis of it written up. But yeah, it's mind-blowing.
You were deleting posts.
I was deleting all day. So they feed them into our queue. So they do a proactive pull, and they pull in so they can search whatever name it is. They pull it into our queue, and all day I'd get like 100 jobs like that. Just delete.
Did you have a touch screen?
No, it was
just your mouse.
So
you're literally
like
clicking, because the post was probably crazy. Like people were probably saying this guy's name thousands of times per hour.
Yeah. And then we had shortcut keys, so it was like 277.
Yeah. Oh wow.
But yeah,
so much easier.
Wow. Did that shock? Would that worry you at all? Were you like, why am I deleting this, or were you just like, I'm at work and I'm gonna delete all these guys?
Some people enjoyed it. I mean,
I'm sure they did.
They enjoyed the power, right? The power trip.
Yeah.
But we even had a picture of George Soros's son that people are confusing with the Ukraine whistleblower, and I raised that up. And I asked my supervisors. They said, and they asked Facebook actually, or I think, and they said no, still delete it because they're implying that it's him. So It wasn't even him; it was someone else. It was Alexander Soros.
I fooled around a bit on Facebook to see what I can get away with.
Of course you did.
And I did one post that was like, I wrote this thing, which was basically, I wrote a short paragraph saying why censorship is wrong, but the first letter of each word spelled his name going straight down.
Pretty creative.
I'd seen those.
It never got deleted. Never got deleted.
Oh, wow.
No, yes, I think I still have it on it. Maybe they deleted it and I just didn't notice at this point. But it was up for a really, really long time as far as I know.
And I thought it was going to be temporary. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's trending right now, maybe in a couple months. But I checked back, and that was like in October or November. I checked back in January, and up until I left till the project ended in this past February, that guidance was still active.
You want to know what the craziest thing was? One of my posts, we'll just call this guy John Doe. Mm-hmm. No, I called him Voldemort. We'll call him Voldemort. He who must not be named.
Yeah, we can't.
So I made a post, using his real name, of course, but it said, Voldemort is a 55-year-old dental hygienist from, Dubuque, right, Iowa. Yeah. He has a family, a wife, and 5 kids, and he's going to, something really benign and having nothing to do with anything. They deleted it. Just because that name was in it. Even though it was a text post about a dental hygienist in Dubuque, totally different person, gone. Now that was over the top. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
It's like it almost felt like it was a robot doing it, but it was people.
Yeah, there really could be someone with that name who happens to have the same name as him who's getting punished because of it. It's speaking of attacking innocent people and like the average Joe citizen. You know who Caitlin Bennett is, right?
Yes.
So there was a meme that's trending about her that's still trending of her like passed out drunk. Supposedly it was her, and there was like feces coming out. It was really gross.
She made a mess.
Yeah. So they still, to this day,
is that real?
I don't know. Is it real?
That's what we were debating, and that's kind of discussions. We have weird conversations at Facebook. Like
sounds like it.
Just a quick aside. You know that the Melania Trump nude photo, like where she's like crotch to crotch with another female. We had this huge discussion about that because per Facebook policy, if they're crotch on crotch and one of them doesn't have underwear on, if it's a guy and a girl, well, there could be, for sake of a better word, penetration. I'm trying to talk about this scientifically.
Yeah, sure.
Be a little family friendly.
Yeah. And so we ended up interpreting the policy to delete that because, anyways, it was just kind of weird. But it's 2 females next to each other.
That's weird. Yeah.
So back to Caitlin Bennett. So Caitlin Bennett, there's this meme trending about her, passed out drunk, but you can't see her face. So there's some college co-ed face down, and her friends are standing around, and she's passed out drunk, and there's stuff coming out of her backside, and her skirt's pulled up halfway up her buttocks. And so there's 3 different policies that we'd look at in this situation. So the first is the bullying policy. So first of all, is she a public figure or a private individual? We don't know. But the policy says if we don't know if it's a public figure or private, then we default to private individual to protect the private individual. Mm-hmm. So they should have not done that from the get-go. There's another policy called sexual exploitation of adults that covers creep shots or taking pictures of people when they're passed out, half naked.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so there's clearly a lot of things they could have deleted this for. But they said, but the guidance was, and I have a screenshot of the guidance, they said, well, we don't know, but we kind of think that it is true, so leave it up. So
You couldn't even see who it was.
you couldn't tell who it was. And the specific guidance in the letter of the law was to default to private individual. If you're unsure, default to private individual. So they didn't follow their own policy, which as you can see is a trend. Facebook not following their own rules.
Yeah.
And so they left it up. So that could be some innocent, 19-year-old girl who's now, being made fun of nationally.
Well, yeah, that's what they always say about Caitlin Bennett. And
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about what it was. They were just, they make fun of her.
Yeah.
So this could be just entirely made up to go after her, to try and poison the well, discredit her so that she can't speak. And Facebook allows it to happen in violation of their own rules.
Right.
Amazing. Have you seen any other examples like that? Or was that like...
So that was a big one, I think. I think also with Greta Thunberg, I think she does a lot of good work. I think she's a wonderful person. I mean, but she has been ridiculed a lot. So Facebook gave her gave an exception to give her additional protections. And we know there's some autism, I think, and so I want to be respectful of that as well. I think she's 17 now, or I'm not sure if she's 17 or 18.
18.
But anyways, so people were calling her retarded, and this is after that incident at the UN where there was an exchange between Greta Thunberg and Donald Trump. But people were calling her retarded. Retarded.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's kind of a play on her name.
I see, Greta.
Retarded,
Right.
retarded. So minor public figures like her, they do have some protections. Like you can't make sexual jokes about them because they are minors. But you can call a minor, you can call Jojo Siwa a retard. Like you can call anybody else who's a minor public figure a retard. It's not a nice thing to say, but Facebook allows it because it's not sexual in nature. But Facebook made an exception to disallow and delete any mention of Greta Thunberg. And so that's when they used their proactive pull. Again, their AI scraped the system and dumped all instances of Greta Thunberg into our queue. Even the actual post we had on our workplace that was mentioning retarded, it pulled that same post into our queue. So every day we're deleting hundreds of jobs related to that. So it's one example of them kind of making an exception to their rules to protect certain people.
Very clearly protecting the left
Yeah.
and going after the right.
Right.
So, I asked you twice now that you think they did provide a benefit to the Democrats, help them win essentially in 2018.
Yeah, I did 100%.
Do you think that's what's happening now?
100%. I mean, and like all the evidence I have points towards that. That they are like interfering in the election. I have these notes here. So this is what they did for the 2020 elections. They created a new queue. So it's called the civic harassment queue. And so they combined basically hate speech and bullying in a way. But they said, why were the changes made to the existing guided review tree for bullying and harassment? And they said bullying and harassment has been identified as a priority issue around the U.S. 2020 election. We acknowledge that anyone can share an opinion about the U.S. 2020 election, but not all voices carry equally far, nor are equally susceptible to attacks. We want to protect not only influential figures who are vulnerable to harassment through their status, but also ordinary folks that make themselves vulnerable by interacting with content generated by these figures. So they're saying there's this overlap between like hate speech and like the election. So what happened was we ended up getting, I think they really wanted to see what was trending. So I saw DC Drano's Instagram account a lot. Some of these huge Instagram influencers. So more things got reported in those comments. And so I think they just really wanted to see the trends. But yeah, it was obviously a priority.
When they track the trends, it's giving them intelligence on what's going on and how people think and feel when it comes to elections and politics.
Yeah.
I'm curious because I know that Mark Zuckerberg apparently had a private meeting with I think like Trump and Ben Shapiro and some other people or something. I'm wondering if they realized a lot of people were mentioning if the Republicans win and they're not censoring Republicans, they'll probably be fine because the conservatives rarely want to regulate big companies. In fact, there's a lot of conservatives right now saying, no, it's a free speech thing. We don't want to regulate. If the left wins, even if they support them, they're going to regulate antitrust or whatever. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people were suggesting that Mark Zuckerberg at some point realized the trend that free speech, liberals were joining conservatives and defending, free speech and these values. And then Mark Zuckerberg switched to start defending the right. So now we have, there's two big stories that overlap. One is that Facebook recently was de-ranking progressive websites like Think Progress. and that actively helping in a way conservative sites, and that's why conservative sites are now the top 10 most shared or engaged with content every single week. You can see it's like Fox News, Ben Shapiro, Dan Bongino every single time. So I'm curious if you saw it doesn't sound like you saw anything, but I'm wondering if you saw any kind of shift in that capacity, if there's any veracity to that theory.
So from a business standpoint, obviously it makes sense to side with people who are more, towards free speech or more libertarians who want less government involvement, because the last thing Facebook wants is more government regulation, right? And I asked a lot of people at Facebook, my coworkers, like, hey, what are Facebook motives? Are they political? And they're like, well, it's all about the money for them. So I think there's some validity to that. I know Mark Zuckerberg got a lot of flack when he said about a year ago, he said that we're not going to fact check political ads.
Yeah.
And the left destroyed him. Oh, and then he met with Trump.
And now they're banning Trump's ads.
Yeah. So they finally flip-flopped.
Yep.
And I have some personal experience with that. When I worked at Uber Corporate in 2016 as a contractor, I worked as a fraud analyst for about 2 months. And we had this club meeting called Uber Hue, like the Ebony Club from high school or whatever, but it's called Uber Hue. And one of the leaders was like bragging about how they got Travis Kalanick, the CEO of Uber, to retract his statement of all lives matter.
Wow.
And so she was like bragging about it. I'm like, and then she's like, yeah. And then he donated and this something to the fourth floor of the Sears Center in Sacramento that was dedicated to the Black Panthers. And I'm like, so you're admitting that like Black Lives Matter helped forced him to retract his statement. Like that's kind of messed up. So yeah, as far as with Mark Zuckerberg and this trend, so I did notice a lot of changes after the civic audit. So the civic audit from the Covington law firm with former Senator John Kyle started in about May of 2018, right after the...
Yeah, what is this lawsuit?
Yeah, so basically, I think there was pressure from Congress, obviously, because Zuckerberg had just testified in April of 2018. And so there was this claim that conservatives were being censored. So this independent law firm, Covington, headed by former Arizona Senator John Kyle, basically went in and interviewed a bunch of people working at Facebook and tried to validify these claims. And so they found that, there was some validity to them. And so I saw a change after that. So after that point, then they began tracking. The newsworthy exceptions. They began being a little more careful about what they said. I saw more blatant leftist-leaning posts. But as to your question, as far as what Mark Zuckerberg's strategy is, or if he's now leaning to the right, I mean, from a business standpoint, like I say, I mean, it's possible that he's trying to play both sides.
Yeah.
But I think there's just too much pressure from these organizations on the left. I mean, if you can have the Uber CEO retract his statement because of pressure from Black Lives Matter, I think there's too much social pressure from the left. So it's going to always lean that way.
Based on what you were saying, did it feel like, there were a lot of people who, like, what was there more of that you saw, right-wing or left-wing content?
I would say there's more right-wing content. I saw a lot of posts. I did see, on, was it Now This Politics a lot. And I saw DC Drano a lot.
What's DC Drano?
He's right wing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's in Florida. He's got about 1 million followers on Instagram.
Oh, wow.
He's running for some office, right?
I'm not sure. He might be.
I think he is,
I know he's a big Trump supporter. So there's a lot of... I saw more right-wing content. There was a fair mix, I would say.
It seems like... I mentioned this on I think the previous episode. There's a meme. It came from 4chan that any sufficiently free space will become right-wing, and only through hard moderation can a space support left-wing ideas. Something like that.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, I guess my question to you in that capacity is, when it came to left-wing content versus right-wing content, did you see a difference between an individual's post or a corporation's posts? Like, was one side doing more corporate, one side more people, individuals?
I definitely saw more... corporate posts that were leftist, and I saw more just individual people who were right wing. And then a funny thing is with how they treat certain words. So there was something called the bullying slang list. So if I call Ian over here, if I say, Ian, you're a Trump humper,
Fair.
and you report it. I, as a moderator, can see that Ian reported that comment. So it's called a name face match.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
So that gives me more power. Now the content moderator can say, hey, Ian himself didn't like that comment. And so, but Trump Humper, it stays up no matter what. Even if you report it, yeah, it stays up.
So
but if I call you a feminazi or a snowflake,
oh snap!
Really?
gets deleted.
Snowflake. Wow.
Yeah.
Trump Humper is okay.
Trump Humper's okay.
But
Nazi's
Snowflake?
okay. Snowflake and feminazi
not
are
okay.
not okay.
Feminazi's no
What
good,
the
but Nazi's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So that
Man.
gives an example, kind of what you were getting into. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. That's what I assumed. That corporations are pushing the leftist narrative.
Yeah.
And the people who follow it blindly. And then the individuals are right wing. There's two ways to look at it. For one, the right is individualist.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got more people on the right. They want to take care of themselves, mind their own business. And the left is more collectivist. So they have a hierarchical collective structure, a corporation telling them what to do and think, and they go along with it.
Yeah.
But in that sense too, it's interesting. That's why that meme exists. That without moderation, it would all be right wing, because the individuals would all be the ones speaking. And the left would not have any kind of group at all. They wouldn't be doing anything. In fact, they'd probably just become right-wing, seeing nothing but right-wing memes and ideas and things like that.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting aspects of that then is it seems like it's not just a left-wing bias, it's a pro-corporate bias. Like, does that make
I
sense?
mean, we see that just recently. We've seen that with, what was it, Expensify that sent out that email.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Expensify sent an email out to all their consumers basically saying, literally in the subject line, vote for Joe Biden.
Or there will be a civil war.
Or there will be a civil war. And you mentioned this collective force of the left wing, and it's like the Borg, like you mentioned on Tuesday, the Borg from Star Trek.
Yeah.
Resistance is futile.
Yep.
And then they were throwing, who was it, the Armstrong, that CEO of that one tech company, under the bus because he said I don't want to talk about politics at work. Do you remember his name? Armstrong?
Which
I think it was
company?
Armstrong.
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, the CEO's name was Armstrong.
Which company was that for?
I don't remember the name.
I'll look it up for you.
Off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, yeah, we see that resistance is futile. I mean, they pressured Travis Kalanick to retract All Lives Matter. And that was in like 2016. That was before it became this big. But right now, like, if you're a corporate entity, you pretty much have to cave into the woke left mob.
Yeah. What is Expensify? Do you know?
I think it has something to do with expense reports.
Yeah.
Because in the
I saw
article,
that.
in the
Yeah,
email,
exactly.
he's like, well, he did like a QA. He's like, well, why does a civil war matter? Aren't you overreacting? He's like, well, in a civil war, I wouldn't be able to bill out expense reports.
There's not going to be a lot of expense reports in a civil war.
Right.
So he's like, so the gist of this story is he is a tech CEO in San Francisco. And he sent out an email to all of his customers saying, you must vote for Joe Biden. I saw some people complaining, saying, why is he using my private information for this? He should not be emailing me these messages outside of the realms of what his business does.
Yeah.
I don't think he broke any laws doing it, but he probably pissed off a lot of customers.
Oh, yeah.
But it's crazy the extent to which I don't care what my expense report tracking company thinks. When I hire a plumber, am I going to be like, by the way, who are you voting for? Don't worry about the toilet. I know it's broken, but let's talk politics. No, I say, thanks for coming. My toilet's broken. Have at it. Let me know if you need anything.
Yeah.
But could you imagine if you hired a plumber and he showed up and said, before I fix your toilet, who'd you vote for? I didn't vote, man. You didn't vote? What, you want a civil war? No, man. I took a dump and the toilet's clogged. That's what I want. I don't know what you're talking about. That's where we're at. People have gone nuts.
Speaking of that collective mind, I mean, this is similar to what Zach Voorhees, the Google whistleblower, kind of uncovered.
I'm sorry, I got to stop real quick. I have to apologize to all plumbers. I think anybody doing a hard job like that probably wouldn't be a leftist anyway.
Right, exactly.
Shout out.
Doing hard work.
Kind of
This
precludes
is true.
leftism.
Now I have to apologize to all the leftist plumbers. I mean, no
my
disrespect.
gosh,
I'm just
right.
kidding. Anyway, continue. Zach Voorhees, who's this guy?
Yeah, so Zach Voorhees is the Google whistleblower. So he went public about a year and a half ago.
I remember him.
He worked as a software engineer for Google for 8.5 years. And he uncovered their algorithms that are basically just trying to shape kind of that collective mind in a way, shape humanity.
It was ML fairness. Is that what he uncovered?
Yeah, fairness. Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Or algorithmic
fairness.
Yeah.
And it was basically this, essentially a way to influence as well the 2020 election. And I'm also working with Dr. Robert Epstein
Oh yeah, that's
and
right.
he's actually my 501c3 sponsor for my foundation. And so he uncovered, the fact that Google was influencing search results in the 2016 election towards Hillary Clinton. And this guy's a classic liberal, someone who's not.
He's got photos. So
Yeah.
Dr. Robert Epstein, he's got pictures of him with like the Clintons, and he's like giving a thumbs up. He's all happy and excited. And then he was like, Google is swinging the election in favor of the Clintons, and this is scary.
Not
Or
excited.
in favor of Hillary.
Yeah.
Cool.
And he has the science to back it up. I mean, behavioral research. So
I want to have him on.
So,
Yeah.
so are we? Is this our last election? If Trump loses, and I'm not saying this to praise Trump. I'm saying if the Democrats win and the machine is favoring them to win, are we just under the boot of the machine if we can't stop it now?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, I hate to be a pessimist.
All right, I'm going fishing, guys. Hey, Ian, take over the show. I'm just kidding.
Oh man, come
Let's
on,
talk
man.
about space. Ryan.
No,
Orbit in orbit.
Ian's gonna make us talk about
Let's read
space.
sci-fi. Let's just play PUBG. And
Yeah, I'm gonna read Dune.
No, but
come on, man.
how pessimistic are you? Do you think this is the end?
I think there's some hope. I think there's a glimmer of hope. There's actually a lawsuit coming up. I talked to this guy named Jason Fick, F-Y-K, and he has a lawsuit against Facebook. Facebook essentially stole his page, deleted his page, and tried to sell it to someone else.
Whoa, what?
Yeah. And he had 40 million followers or something like that.
What the
Huge
heck?
account. And so his lawsuit might go to the Supreme Court. It might be appealed to the Supreme Court. And Clarence Thomas just issued an opinion last week on Malwarebytes versus something else. But he basically issued a really important opinion that's talking about Section 230. So there's a glimmer of hope, and it has to do with how this Ninth Circuit has interpreted Section 230 incorrectly. So
Interesting.
So when with Jason's lawsuit, basically he tried to sue them, and then Facebook's like, oh well, we're not the publisher,
Right.
but the publisher is different than a publisher. So
Right.
they're like, we're not the publisher, and as in we weren't the ones who originally wrote the content, but they were acting as a developer because they were promoting or deboosting certain content.
Right.
And so that's the argument that Jason Fick has is basically to fix Section 230, we need to have it either reinterpreted we need to have it interpreted correctly by the Supreme Court because it's been interpreted incorrectly by the Ninth Circuit Court of California, which has given additional protections and immunity under Section 230C1.
Yeah.
Not C2, because we always talk about C2.
Well, hold on. So, what? Can you explain Section 230 just easily for people who don't know what it is?
Yeah, so 1996, the Congress created a law that was supposed to protect children on the internet from bad content, so that if someone has if someone hosts a platform or a message board, that message board would not be responsible for every single comment. But it gave immunity to these I hate to use the word platform, but
It's like digital information site or something. I think it's like the language.
Yeah, like there's service providers, there's information content providers, which is you and me, and then there's another category. But for the sake of simplicity, yes, it gave platforms immunity. But yeah, so the way it was designed, the way it was interpreted is fine, but the way it's been reinterpreted by the Ninth Circuit gives additional immunity to these platforms.
Basically, how it started was there was like a news website, I guess, and someone commented on it saying, I think it was the dude from Wolf of Wall Street actually who was like the subject of the suit. Someone went on a website, commented, this dude is like a scammer or something like that. So he sued the website saying, you published this comment. The website said, no, we didn't. There was a comment from somebody else. So this led to the creation of this law that said, okay, newswebsite.com can't be responsible for a comment.
Yeah.
So we're going to pass this law that says you are not responsible for this content so long as, you are not the publisher or editor of the content. Then the website said, well, wait. But we might want to remove content. I mean, do we lose this protection if someone posts a picture of like a dead cat or something? And they're like, okay, that's a good point. Okay, so you're not responsible for what users post, and you can remove things if they're objectionable. And they said, excellent. This was like God tier immunity. The lawmakers didn't realize what they had just done. Now, literally everything's objectionable. What does it even mean? Nobody even knows. So it's a good faith effort to moderate, if it's lewd, lascivious, or objectionable. So now you get Twitter being like, this guy tweeted, learn to code. Well, that's objectionable. Nuked. And they're protected. They have immunity. No other company has this.
Yeah.
So it gets even crazier when we talk about Facebook. Because Facebook has fact checkers now that are a special class of people that they choose, not individuals who just sign up and do things. No, it's their choice, their criteria. And they can say, you're a liar. They can take something you said and put a big thing over it that says fake news, which is a statement of fact, false information. This person is wrong. That is coming from Facebook and no one else. So this is what's crazy to me. If you want to make an argument that, Facebook, Twitter, whoever shouldn't be sued because a commenter said something, I'm listening. If you tell me that Facebook can appoint people to insult and make statements about other people or defame by calling them liars, well, Facebook's responsible for that. Facebook's the one who's authorized that posting.
Yeah.
It is not the same as a random user signing up and using it. They've said, okay, these 7 people are allowed to say whatever they want. It's like, okay, well, Facebook, when you put a card over my post, you have editorialized and you have personally published a statement. So we need 230 reform. I know Trump has said repeal 230, which would be a huge mistake.
Yeah.
These platforms wouldn't exist without it. They do need immunity so long as they're acting in good faith and they're not just removing legal speech. So you mentioned before you have some ideas on 230.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good interpretation of it. So, the way that it's been interpreted, it's that Section 230 has been interpreted by the Ninth Circuit Court of California, gives Facebook additional protections under C1. So that whole motive part, where being a good Samaritan, doesn't even apply. So in Jason Fick's case, when Facebook fought back and with their appeal or whatever, their response, they didn't have to argue on the basis of Section C2. They just argued on the bare merits of C1, which the Ninth Circuit had interpreted which favors them. And so, no, I agree with you on that. I think that repealing it completely would be a disaster.
Bad.
Now, I've heard that Egypt Pi actually has authority to reinterpret or reform Section 230.
And he should have done it
great.
a long time ago. So
Yeah.
forgive me if I have no faith in him or any one of these Republicans to get it done.
Yeah.
Can you define Section 1 and Section 2 of 230?
C1 and C2,
C1
right?
and
Yeah.
C2?
So I don't have I have the what Jason Fick wrote about it.
Wait, we actually have it.
Do you have
I
it? Do
pulled
you
it
have
up.
Section 1 and
Yeah,
2?
I got it right in front of us.
So Section C2 is the one that we're all familiar with. It talks about
So
yeah.
C1 says treatment of publisher or speaker. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider, which is like the individual. 2 is civil liability. No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be held liable on account of A, any action voluntarily taken in good faith to restrict access to or availability of material the provider or user considers to be obscene, lewd, lascivious, filthy, excessively violent, harassing, or otherwise objectionable, whether or not such material is constitutionally protected, or B, any action taken to enable or make available to information content providers or others the technical means to restrict access to material described in paragraph 1. So basically the first C1 is I'm not liable for what another person said. C2 is we're allowed to remove whatever we want as long as we're doing it in good faith, which basically at this point means literally whatever they want.
And you could argue that if they're putting like a notice out that says Tim Pool posted fake news, that they're become a publisher under Section 1, C1.
So what I'm saying is, let me tell you the story. I posted something about Bill Clinton and Epstein Island. Everything I said was factually correct. I said Bill Clinton was seen in these flight logs. He was seen on the plane. He was ID'd by a witness on the island, and this is not major breaking news. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing right now because I don't have the tweet in front of me. But somebody screenshotted it because it went viral, posted it to Facebook, and Facebook put a card over it saying false information or something.
Yeah.
That was Facebook doing that. Facebook put a flag saying false information on my post. They made a statement about me that I had lied to the public.
So then
Facebook refused to take it down.
They become a publisher at that point under C1?
They are the speaker.
Yeah, it seems like that. I think that's a good argument.
Yep.
And if you look at the definition of development, which is actually in the law, it says, choosing to promote, prioritize. Well, this is not the law, but basically choosing to promote, prioritize, advance, boost, or increase the availability or usability of information is by definition development. Go look up development in Webster's. So I'm reading from Jason Fick's analysis. But yeah, I mean, the service provider, they're sponsoring ads. So the entire nature of their business violates Section 230.
Yeah.
Because what do they do all day? They boost ads. They place other
Algorithms,
people's
yep.
content in front of other people's content.
Oh, wow. So that negates it.
Yeah, that negates the immunity.
That makes sense, because one of the arguments that we've all been saying about Twitter and Facebook for a long time is if they choose the winners and losers, they may as well be the New York Times. The only difference, the New York Times is I hire you, write for me, and then they choose which to go up on the site. Whereas Twitter is everybody write for free, and then we'll choose which ones go up on the site.
Yeah, and even Clarence Thomas, in his opinion, and that was Malwarebytes versus Enigma Software, and that was this past Tuesday, October 13th.
Wow, so recently.
Yeah, very recent.
Wow.
And so he said the Ninth Circuit Court incorrectly held that subsection 230C1 does not render subsection 230C2A redundant, as subsection 230C2 provides an additional shield from liability. So there was some redundancy, so that's why it needs to be reinterpreted either by AgitPi. But I agree with you, or the Supreme Court. But I agree with you because we had that antitrust hearing a couple months ago where we had the tech CEOs testify. I guess there's another subpoena. But, Jim Sensenbrenner, this congressman from Wisconsin, he's been in like 21 terms, and he's out there saying, well, we shouldn't punish successful companies.
Because he's a Republican, right?
He's Republican.
Go figure.
But
the rhinos and the dinos have been sitting in there milking the system, suckling the teat of big business.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't vote. And that's why I'm voting now, because I think something's happening. You've got, on the left and the right, populists. And I think the left hates the right. The right hates, well, I shouldn't say hate, but they think both sides think each other is crazy.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, I would rather, I want to see these people who sat in office for decades doing nothing, saying the bare minimum, taking cash from big corporations, and then just being, oh, whatever, I'm not going to do anything for you. Who cares if the people are suffering? You got a job, huh? Congratulations, buddy. I hope it was worth it.
But yeah, just to summarize Section 230, I mean, imagine like your public library, and you go to the public library, and the library itself is not responsible for what's in the content of those books, right? But whereas if you go to Barnes & Noble, like they're promoting certain books, there's certain books that are on special. So that's kind of the difference. And so Facebook's kind of morphed from a public library into this Barnes & Noble, so to speak.
Yeah.
We have it mines, if it's not legal in the United States, then it's taken down, and it's actually state by state, and it's a Connecticut thing because that's where the corporation's based. So if it's not legal in Connecticut, it's taken off the site. But if it's legal, it stays on the site. It just goes into different buckets depending on if it's objectionable, and then you have to opt in to see objectionable content. By default, everyone kind of has the rated G filter on. And
That's interesting because Jack Dorsey's talked about that, like some kind of system where instead of getting banned, I think it was Jack. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but there was I think it was Jack Dorsey. If instead of getting banned, you get put in basically like the underbelly, and people can choose to go into the dark crevice of horror Twitter and see all of the nasty pictures and photos and people.
And it's still like up to discretion what's nasty. And that's a little weird because you put it in the terms, and like objectionable is a horrible word to use because like how do you define that? It's up to the admin basically.
Yeah.
But how, I don't know. We kind of have our peers can judge now. We've got like a 12-person jury system where if they judge that it's objectionable, then it goes to the objectionable thing and you can appeal that objectionable,
That's a great
rating.
idea.
I like that.
So actually, this really actually relates to something I was researching. So back in the it started in the 20s, but in England, there was this thing called the British Board of Film Censors. So it was basically that, like, hey, there's this consensus opinion, what's culturally appropriate. Obviously, things that we see on TV would be, obscene to someone from 100 years ago, like living in the 1920s. So what's acceptable publicly to be viewed? And so this British Board of Film Censors, there's this documentary called Video Nasties. You can search it on YouTube. And it talks about how the British Board of Film Censorship basically, could make their own rules. So this famous quote from John Trevelyan, he said, "We have no rules," which I think is important. I think it's the only way to do it. You see, if you have your rules, you either got to stick to them or you have to interpret them. And I think either is foolish. So he's basically admitting, like, hey, we're in charge of the film censorship. We determine whether the movies get approved or not whether they don't get approved. And we have no rules. And it really made me think of Facebook because sure, they have the rules, but they don't follow them half the time. They make exceptions whenever they want to protect someone that they want to protect.
All right, so let me ask you this question.
Oh,
you
well.
you mentioned that you submitted for some promotions.
Yeah.
But you didn't get them.
No, I didn't get them.
What would you say to somebody who said that your leaking of this information was just because you were angry they didn't promote you?
That's a valid point. I mean, you want to, if you have any whistleblower who comes forward, you want to examine their motives, right? And so, yeah, I mean, that's a valid point. Something that I also mentioned in the video that came out is, okay, well, first you got to realize, okay, if I got a promotion, how much more money would I be making?
I don't know how much.
Like $1.25.
Oh, okay.
So I was making $15 an hour. I was making like 28 grand a year.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And so if I got a promotion, I'd be making 16 an hour. Facebook promised us that we'd get like an increase, but our project ended before that. So they're going to increase to like 18 an hour base. But everyone was making the same. I even knew Spanish. So I was on the Spanish side. I was making 15 an hour. But yes, it would have helped with my resume, I guess, maybe my career
title.
advancement. Yeah, better title.
So
yeah.
just to clarify, you're saying it was not a factor.
No, it wasn't a factor.
So I only asked that because the next question is, at what point were you like, I've got to do something and I've got to just release all this stuff?
So it's funny because there was actually another insider who blew the whistle on like wrongdoings at Cognizant, who felt that they weren't helping us enough with our mental health. And so
I remember that story.
Yeah, the Verge story. So February 2019, this journalist Casey Newton, he actually came to the site in Phoenix, and I saw him there, and he walked around and he wrote an article about it. And so in a way, I mean, that might have been a little bit of inspiration for me, because I had some information that was kind of bothering me, that I'd seen some examples of bias. So that 3 months later, in May of 2019, I wrote a letter to Congress, or to a few congressmen, with about 19 examples of bias, and I didn't hear back. And that's when I started reaching out to a couple of journalists. And
can you name them?
So I mean, I'll just say that I ended up with Project Veritas. Someone referred me to Project Veritas.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
You mentioned. I was going to say, when you mentioned Casey Newton, I was like, oh, did he go in and cheer for the censorship? He's at the Verge.
I know. And the funny thing is, like, since you'd think he'd be interested in another, hey, I had an insider at this location, another guy from the same exact location came forward with video evidence. You'd think he'd be interested in it. But I searched their website. There's zero mention of me or Project Veritas. I don't think they're fans of Project Veritas.
So you don't want to mention which other organizations you reached out to? You don't have to. I don't want to pressure you to do it.
No, not at this time. But it did bother me, because I think I saw something. What did I see that May of 2019? There were a lot of things that bothered me. But one of the things that bothered me the most, I think, that came out that I saw in 2018 was they made an exception to allow calling straight white males filth. So they said, hey, every summer there's this Pride Month, and we're going to make an exception to allow attacks on straight white males for not supporting LGBT. So if you say straight white males are filth for not supporting LGBT, that's allowed. So they're carving out an exception, and then they changed the policy to allow the phrase white trash, which is almost synonymous with trailer trash. So I kind of understand, but at the same time.
Do you remember when those?
It racist.
Do you remember when those feminists also getting banned for saying #KillAllMen? Were you there at the time when that happened?
I don't recall that. I know we made an exception in South Africa when there was domestic violence against women, where they allowed the phrase "men are trash."
Wow, that's just a bad idea. It's so stupid. It sounds like morons run these companies. Forgive me if you're friends with some of these people still, but that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Hey, there's a bunch of tension and animosity between people based on identity. Can we inflame that? Yes,
that okay.
let's yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, did you tell James O'Keefe that he was that he's your bronze medal? Wait, did I say it right? He was not your first choice or whatever. I'm kidding. Yeah. So
there was a time. So when I first reached out around June of 2019, I first contacted Project Veritas, and then we talked a little bit. And I think I filmed the first time around June of 2019. And then I didn't respond for a little while. I don't know. I didn't check my email or whatever. And then later that fall, we started talking again. So I didn't film. And then we found out that the project was ending. Cognizant chose to end the project with Cognizant. And so I started filming more regularly.
Interesting.
But yeah, so that the February 2019, the Verge article came out. And I didn't agree with some of it, because I feel like Cognizant did a really good job of helping us with our mental health. We had counselors on site 24/7. We had a psychiatrist who was in charge of everything, and so we had a number to call. They gave us wellness time, like 10 minutes a day. So
were you right leaning before taking this job?
I was.
I heard another story that people are getting red pilled by moderating this content because they see so many right wing memes that they start to be like, hey, wait a minute, you know? Is that something you experienced? Like, not you personally, but like, did you see anybody who was like, hey, I saw this thing?
I don't know if I don't know even anyone personally. I know some people were like more open to conspiracy theories or like, you know, the flat earth theories, things like that.
No.
So it did expose you to different viewpoints, and you did get a darker sense of humor. You got kind of like a gallows humor from working there.
Did you have like really nasty inside jokes, like the 12th time you saw an incest video and like everyone's like, oh, one of those, huh? And like you guys are laughing about the horror of it all.
You know, similar types of humor.
I say this because people use humor to release the tension, right?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if like you're watching like videos of murder and like all this crazy stuff, and then someone's just cracking really dark jokes about it to try and bring some like levity to the situation, you know?
Yeah, I think that can be effective in a way. I mean, therapy, I mean, a way of dealing with it. One strategy that was kind of cool that one of the counselors taught me is if you're seeing something really violent, you don't really want to empathize. You want to visualize yourself in a movie theater, and then there's another you standing at the back of the theater. So you're watching yourself in the movie seat, watching the film, and the film is what you're seeing in the video. So it kind of distances and detaches yourself from the actual content.
It's weird.
But
it's so weird.
Yeah, I had coworkers who, man, they saw child porn and it really bothered them.
Wow, dude,
that's really bad. But it was a small percentage. So some of it was like really funny.
Everything down.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't imagine someone doing that job. You see that stuff and then like you just want to track these people down. Like you see their profiles, right? Yeah. Like you can see their personal information.
So not too much personal information. Sometimes just their profile photo and their name, but.
And it could be fake.
I'm sure it's crossed through people's minds. I mean,
hunt these people down.
Oh yeah, like
wow, dude.
And then
dude, that'd be a cool superhero film. I guess be too gritty. Like a dude is a content moderator for Facebook.
Dude, that would be a good film.
Every time he sees a video, he just like kind of like Dexter,
like Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
I will find you.
I will find you.
He said like the guy gets a Facebook message and he's like, I'm a Facebook content moderator. I will find you. I will destroy you. It would be like Dexter, you know, like this dude just like has their Facebook information. I couldn't imagine working a job like that, man. I don't know how you did it for almost 2 years.
Yeah, it was tough. There were times, but you know, luckily I didn't bring it home very often. And I think there's a lot of people who struggle with it more than others. But it was a unique job in a way, though. If you could get past that, it was a cushy type of job. I mean, it was
if you could get past it.
I mean, yeah, if you could get past it. But we'd have just the weirdest conversations, like, you know, hey, is this because we had definitions for like. You know, if I can say this, like for erections, like is the shape? You know, you got really nuanced in the detail. So you'd have conversations with your coworkers, like,
oh man,
hey, what do you think of this? And,
oh jeez, I'm imagining like a dude walking up to like there's like a guy's like, you know, putting cream in his coffee, and it's like, yeah, so I got a video today, and it was like this guy's got a screwdriver, right? He's holding this other guy down while strangling him, and he lifts his arm up. And then it cuts out. I'm wondering, is that too much?
It was,
you know, send me the link.
Yeah, send me the link. I'll check it out. And I'll let you know what I think. And then it's like, I can't figure. Hey, Janet, come over here and take a look at this guy. He's choking some guy. He's about to, like,
literal. That's
crazy.
Yeah.
Was that what it was like?
It was. That's exactly what it was. I mean, like,
oh man.
I can't help feeling that there are some parallels here between what you did and what we used to go through in the hospital, because we would talk about these horrible, horrifying things, and you have to make a joke about them. You just have to.
Yeah. Well,
you can't. Yeah, you just can't go with it.
Yeah, you have to deal with it somehow.
Right.
But you should know. Maybe this is why I wasn't affected as much. Like I actually had a stint at a funeral home.
Yeah.
So you know, we used to have a lot of people under us.
Under you? That sounds bad at a nursing home.
Wait. See, that's the gallows humor. Like,
what the heck?
I used to work for a bunch of stiffs. Yeah.
I got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because they worked in the hospital.
Took us a while, huh?
Yeah.
We're like, we don't. I don't know the inside humor.
Probably wasn't the best joke.
That's all good. I got it.
That's funny.
If you work at a funeral home, you're probably started laughing.
Yeah.
I kind of got it, but I was like, wait, is that it? Is that wait, what am I missing?
Did you guys ever watch bangedup.com back in the day?
No,
like
what is that?
A couple decades ago. It was just gruesome people getting killed videos.
Faces of Death.
Yeah, it was stuff like that.
That's like the video series.
2001, 2, 3 years. I used to watch that. That kind of prepped me for the job.
I remember my friends would share like the Faces of Death VHS.
Gross.
You guys don't know that? It was literally just videos of people dying. And I was just like, why would you put that on?
Why would you
I was like,
that?
I've got Fast Times at Ridgemont High on VHS. Let's put that in.
My theory was
that one's got boobs in it. I don't want to watch a guy die. You know what I mean?
Like I would try and watch military head cams, like a soldier getting shot and like bleeding out as he's like screaming, because my theory was if it happened, I should expose myself to it, and it kind of works, but it can also drive you insane.
I actually agree. I remember there would be these viral videos periodically that were extremely gruesome, and people would be like, "Don't watch it, don't watch it." And I'll be like, I kind of feel like you shouldn't hide from what's out there. And I'm not saying to go around and watch every single video, and like you watch one, you say, "I get it,"
but don't hide.
But yeah, don't hide from it, because I've seen stuff in real life. I've seen people get shot and killed. I've seen some pretty brutal stuff, and that's why it was funny when you were bringing up the counseling and all that stuff. I'm like, if I watched a video of someone getting seriously hurt or like some violence or gore, I could easily handle it. But then you went into like the child stuff, and I was like, oh, that's when I would probably just like my head would explode and I'd start smashing things. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like you're taking off work and you're like loading a 12 gauge or whatever, and they're like, "Where are you going today?" "I just got some work. I got some stuff to do after." Let me take the guy's profile real quick. I'll be back tomorrow. Yeah. Maybe not. I might be in prison.
Be my wood chipper.
I've seen stuff like
yeah. When I was watching what was happening with Project Planet Pizza, I don't know if you remember the Pizzagate story. There was somebody who went there with a gun, and I was like, I was honestly just surprised it wasn't a girl, because if you really believe that kids are being abused, you're gonna make stuff happen.
That's what's scary though, because that was so dumb.
Yeah, I was like, that's not right.
This building doesn't even have a basement, but you see these. So I'll tell you what, in that regard, I do kind of understand why they want to moderate some content.
Yeah, I mean, you were mentioning like graphic scenes. We would see like car accidents, people dying, suicide videos. Also, I was going to say también, which means also in Spanish. Yeah. Sometimes I switch the two.
Oh, good.
But I mean, like, but graphic noise. So I was going to say, remember that Trumpsman viral meme, like from the Kingsman movie? There was this Trumpsman meme.
When
and
Trump
we actually we categorized that.
Oh,
so it showed a scene from this fictional movie, Kingsman, where there's a lot of violence.
And it was like killing the media, right?
Yeah, killing the media. And so it had the real photos photoshopped in, but like in the graphic violence so we actually put an interstitial on that. They told us to mark as disturbing, MAD, mad.
Yeah.
And so I could see an argument for just leaving it up because it's fictional. It's a fictional scene.
And wasn't Trump like it's like, so Kingsman's an awesome movie. And it's like there's this really graphic scene where he's killing. It's in a church. It was actually, I think Colin Firth was the actor, and it was in the movie. This is what's really, really funny. I mean, kind of disturbing. In the movie Kingsman, definitely watch it. I love this movie. Colin Firth goes to this like really extremist church, and the villain triggers this kind of sound thing that makes everyone go nuts and become extremely aggressive. Well, Colin Firth's character is a secret agent of measurable skill, and he kills every single person. And it's gruesome.
Yes.
Now, here's what's funny. My understanding, that's okay. Putting up a video on Facebook, a scene from a movie where a British guy in a suit, a gentleman, brutally murders a bunch of Southern churchgoers, totally fine. But superimpose logos from media companies on it and put Trump's face on the British guy and whoa.
Yeah. And the same thing happens in Brazil, too. Like President Bolsonaro, who when he was running for president in Brazil, he actually got stabbed.
I remember that. It was like a long knife, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know the exact length of it. Yeah, huge knife. It was a life-threatening wound. Like it was a big deal.
That was crazy.
And so he got stabbed. And then there was memes showing like a cartoon meme showing Bolsonaro with a knife coming out kind of like a boomerang and coming back, landing back on him. So it was mocking mocking the events of him almost dying. And Facebook allows that.
Jeez.
And so I mean, Brazil is another animal as well. I mean, Brazil, there's a lot of tech censorship that goes on there. I was there like last month. I met with a congresswoman in Brazil, and their Supreme Court is just targeting conservatives. Like I met a couple of people whose homes were raided by the Supreme Court because they were supporting right-wing news organizations.
Wow.
And so these people, they want the U.S.'s help to use the Magnitsky Act. Magnitsky Act against the Brazilian Supreme Court. So I mean, it's happening there, and they're looking at this election coming up and wondering what's going to happen, because a lot of countries in the world are looking at the U.S. Hey, if Trump doesn't win, things are going to get a lot worse for us.
In Brazil? Yeah,
in Brazil and everywhere else, because we're such a big strategic ally, and they look to us for a leadership as far as, our basic freedoms and whatnot.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny that the people who oppose Trump call themselves the resistance, and they're literally on the side of every major multinational corporation and big tech
Never.
conglomerate authoritarian structure. But Donald Trump, this one guy, tell you what, they
Never
resist
expect
him.
them, yeah.
If he's a dictator, he's pretty bad at it, because
He's
you think
awful.
by
He's
this
really
time,
bad at
after
it.
4 years, he would have taken control of
Right.
Facebook and Twitter.
Media.
But if he,
Well,
yeah.
it's funny that I spend my life growing up hearing from the left that the corporations are the problem, and the government will save us, and then I hear from the right, no, the government is bad and corporations are fine. And I'm being very general with this.
Yeah.
Now you got the left that they're basically like corporations and government are great, which sounds very much like fascism.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got roving bands of like this is crazy. In San Francisco, there was a dude. There were people putting on a protest of big tech censorship. One of the dudes was a black dude, and Antifa punched him in the face, knocking his teeth out. And my question is just like, wait, so you got a black dude who's protesting against multinational billionaires who are stifling his speech. So you punch him in the face? Sounds like you're the fascist, man. Like you're punching someone on behalf of a major corporation, billionaires.
Yeah.
Like you're the brown shirt, man.
It's pretty insane. The whole corporate mentality. I mean, now you have these huge corporations like bending to the Black Lives Matter movement, and none of these groups are hate orgs. So the dangerous individuals and organizations policy deals with these organizations, like any criminal organization. So we have a list of cartels that we would delete on a regular basis, terrorist organizations, obviously. But they added something there, and it said, not allowed. We delete people notable for attacking people based on protected characteristics. So based on their race, ethnicity, gender.
Stuff that
But it's
you
such a
change.
broad definition. Okay, who are these people that are notable? Where's the list? Because we had the list of hate figures. So they had the list where we
How
had,
do you know they're hate figures?
because it's on the list that Facebook gives us.
Oh, okay.
So Facebook created the list?
Yeah, Facebook defined them as
Interesting.
hate figures.
So that was Paul Joseph Watson, like Milo, Alex Jones, right?
So on the list that I had, I for sure saw Gavin McInnes and Tommy
Robinson.
so and so. Yeah, I don't know if we're allowed to say his name, but yeah, Gavin McInnes. We're talking about them neutrally, so we're not praising,
Crazy
supporting, or
that- we're
representing
nuked.
them.
They're gonna
You
ban
even
us.
consider that you can't say someone's name's insane.
Well, yeah. So with these
That's
organizations,
1984, isn't it?
So
It is.
bizarre.
Like you couldn't say people's
It's
names
backwards. We should stop that.
No, I mean, like, wasn't that literally in the book where it was like a person's name wasn't allowed to be said or something?
I don't know.
I
What
think
book was
so.
that?
Come on, guys.
The Brave New World
Get it
movie.
together.
Swear. Anyway,
So yeah, PSR, praise, support, or represent. You cannot do any praise, support, or represent of these individuals. And so Gavin McInnes and Tommy are literally on the same list as Adolf Hitler. I'm not shitting you.
wow.
What?
And so, so this is the hate figure list. So, I mean, this is how they and the source they use that I have evidence. The source they use is the ADL and the Southern Poverty Law.
That's what I was asking. So,
Yeah.
right? Because the SPLC went through its own major scandal where apparently they were being run by racists,
Mm-hmm.
and like there was an investigation that found decades of racism, and that the organization itself was essentially just a bunch of racists making money off pretending to be not racist,
Yeah.
and then storing a bunch of that money overseas or something.
Yeah.
The ADL has its issues, but I got to be honest. When you when you read articles from the Anti-Defamation League, like we had Enrique Tarrio of the Proud Boys here, it was I would say extremely critical, had an extremely negative view, but it was decent assessment. I should say. Like they said, they're clearly not white supremacists, though they have had members who overlap, and I'm like, that's true.
Yeah.
Like even they've talked to us about like, oh yeah, we had to kick these people out for these reasons.
Yeah.
And so I think the ADL is the problem with the ADL is that their view of everything is extremely negative, and they view all these groups like they take I don't know how else to describe it other than they're very, very opinionated to an extreme degree. You know, you do one wrong thing and they're like, that person's evil, but they'll mention what you did and why they're mad about it. They just
Yeah.
get mad really easily. Southern Poverty Law Center, as far as I'm concerned, just makes it all up. Like they had one article that included me where they claimed that I went to an Iranian Holocaust deniers conference,
Oh, yeah.
and their evidence for it was an archived version of a website that didn't exist anymore. That was a Holocaust deniers website saying that I was an attendee. I've never been to Iran.
Did you sue them for that?
So there was a suit. They settled immediately and issued an apology, and they said I was a leftist. How about that? They were
There you
they basically said we apologize to people who were on the left, Tim Pool, so and so, or whatever.
Speaking of Iran, so I actually have a evidence, a screenshot at work of a post giving guidance about Iran. So Facebook allowed the phrase "death to Khamenei" for about 3 months, roughly, when there was mass protests in Iran. So, I mean, depending on which side you are on, doesn't really matter, but it just shows you the amount of power that they have. So on the entire Facebook platform, Facebook can just switch a lever and say, we're going to allow the phrase "death to Khamenei."
Wow. Well,
normally it's not allowed.
Well, let's have a hard question. I mean, a hard conversation. If Facebook just allows everything, won't it go nuts? Like, isn't it possible we'll see crazy extremism and crazy groups of people just screaming violence or whatever? I mean, actually look at Antifa and look at Black Lives Matter violence, 140 plus days of rioting.
Yeah.
And then isn't it because they won't check them? They won't say stop advocating for violence?
Yeah, I think there's the potential. I mean, if there's some changes with Facebook and more things are, I mean, if in general more things are allowed, and it's funny because the left always claims that the Facebook's not doing enough to censor hate speech when there's a bunch of people on the list that are right wing, but there's nobody on the left. Even segregationists on the left, they're never on the list. But I think there's a lot of crazy stuff on the internet. I mean, I think we're barely even beginning to grasp like how influential the internet is, how powerful it's become. In the last 20 years, we've seen this technology revolution. So I don't think even the leading technologists or even the people who created the internet understand what it's become. So I mean, that goes into the larger debate of what's allowed on the internet. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of crazy stuff on the left and the right, both parts.
Do you think there is some kind of collusion between Democratic politicians and Facebook?
100%.
You do think so?
Yeah. I mean, so here, let me say this: indirectly, at the very least, at the most, direct collusion.
So,
I mean,
did you ever witness a Democratic politician coming in and talking with anybody, or any kind of evidence that they were?
I do not have direct evidence. What I can say is there's a group of about 6 people. So I talked to one of my team manager, Alexis, and she had interactions with the global policy team at Facebook. There's about 6 people who determine the policy. And she was telling me like, yeah, like they all kind of have the same mindset and they're all based in San Francisco. As far as direct, collusion with Democrat politicians, I talked to a journalist with the New York Post the other day, 1 or 2 days ago, and he was finding this connection between Twitter executives who had this revolving door with the Obama administration.
Well, so there was a Facebook employee who joined Joe Biden's team and a Twitter employee who did as well, and I think the guy's name is Andy Stone. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Facebook Communications previously worked for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. So we've seen that there is the revolving door between Facebook and Democrats and Twitter and Democrats. They're working for Joe Biden. Yeah. This guy announced that they were going to censor the New York Post story on Hunter Biden. Like that's crazy. I mean, this is a prominent American newspaper started by Alexander Hamilton in 1801. And I believe it was 1801. And he's like, well, we're going to censor the story anyway. This guy worked for the Democrats. Mm-hmm. Apparently, I guess he worked for Barbara Boxer before. So what makes you look, I get it. We have those stories. But, based on your experience working with this company, what made you think that there was potentially direct collusion?
As far as direct collusion, I mean, look, I didn't work in the Facebook offices in Menlo Park. So I interacted with some, the people I interact with were mainly Cognizant employees, to be frank. Now, Sean Browder is the person who interacted constantly with the client, with Facebook. And so what I can, what I've noticed from my conversations with him is, first of all, he's very left-leaning, a Bernie Sanders supporter. They are very interested in, me bringing up trends about right-wing extremism, like Boogaloo. And for example, the Virginia gun rally in January was labeled as like, hey, watch out for hate speech or, racist groups, at this Virginia gun rally. So, I mean, the evidence I have is not really, it's not like I had conversations with Facebook employees who said, yes, a Democrat politician told us to change the policy. So I think there's more of an indirect effect from all these leftist organizations.
So just more of like an extreme bias.
Yeah, more of extreme bias. I mean, are there politicians that are probably buddy-buddy with people at Facebook? I'm sure there are. I mean, we had Joshua Fauerstein get banned like a month ago or whatever, and the only way he could, get his account back was by reaching out to Trump officials, like people he knew. So like, if that's happening on that side, let's just the same thing's probably happening on the opposite end. I mean, if people are probably giving favors or helping out Democrat politicians. I did notice, here's something huge that I do have evidence of, is something called the shields that they have, that Facebook has. So it's called the Fire Brigade. Let me see if I have the notes on here. But basically there's different shields. So I ran across some content. I tried to like action it, and it was like, you cannot action this content. There is a shield on this content. So Fire Brigade stands for like PR fire. So there's different tags. So there's like high pry, X-check tag, and business tag. So you cannot delete or touch certain content because it has this shield or tag associated with it. So it may very well be that there's accounts that should be protected, kind of like VIPs, that you cannot delete.
Interesting.
I ran into the same thing when I worked at Uber, because we would deal with fraud and partner fraud, but we'd occasionally run into VIP accounts, like really big celebs that we didn't want to piss off or have their account canceled or something. So we seeing everything we've seen over the past year, someone like myself, I read the news all day and I have my opinions on whether or not Trump's going to win. But with your experience with how big tech is manipulating the elections, essentially, do you think Trump is going to win? I think that Trump has a good chance of winning. I think Facebook's doing everything they can to like push people a certain way. There was a cartoon image of Trump shooting himself, and Facebook said we're going to allow that. There was who was the guy who tried to assassinate Reagan? He got out of jail or out of the hospital.
Hinckley?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, and so he came out of the hospital, and there was this meme implying that he should shoot Trump, and Facebook allowed that.
Wow.
Classy.
And so, yeah, I really think there's a chance that despite all that, there's a good chance Trump will still win, especially when you're going against someone like Joe Biden.
I wonder if it's not despite all that. I wonder if it's because of it. I wonder if people are sick and tired of seeing the psychotic behavior of the left, the cancel culture stuff. Like, you don't see videos of people, threatening Joe Biden. You don't see these pictures or videos mocking him. I have to imagine there's regular people who might see, like, remember when Kathy Griffin held up the head?
Yeah.
I wonder how many votes Trump got from that, from people who are just like, oh, that's disgusting. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden kind of just like, I don't like these people,
I think it's backfired. Yeah, I think you're right in a lot of regards. I think it's backfired because there's so much hate against Trump that the normal individual who's not hateful is like, hey, why is there all this hate against Trump? And so, yeah, I think that's very possible. There's been pushback, and it's kind of worked against them. And the fact that I revealed this damaged, Facebook's reputation and brought to light certain things. So, if Facebook had been playing by the rules from the get-go, then I wouldn't have been able to film their discrepancies, them breaking their own rules.
Can't Facebook just be like, oh no, this is cognizant. These oh darn it, these evil contractors. We had no idea.
Well, some of the posts they can't really argue that because, for example, when they told us to not treat abortion as a violent death, it said the Facebook team has given us. It said the FB team has given us guidance to not treat abortion as a violent death.
That reminds me of my conversation with Jack Dorsey when I was explaining to them that their rules are inherently biased. And, Vijay Gadde and Dorsey were immediately like, oh, no, that's not true. What are you talking about? And I said, you have a misgendering policy. Like, you straight up say if you misgender someone, if you went to a conservative and said, don't misgender someone, they would assume you're saying if someone is born male, then you call him he, him. And if born female, she, her. Whereas Twitter's perspective is the inverse. If somebody says their identity is, then you got to use that. So to a conservative, what Dorsey views as misgendering, it's inverted. And if their rules are built around a progressive understanding of these definitions and what they mean, then they're inherently biased.
Yeah, because and you can't really tell that you're biased. If you're really that biased, you can't tell that you're biased. And there's that groupthink effect that we saw, in 2008 when the media just fawned over President Obama. But an example of that related to misgendering is we had so in the hate speech policy, if you're attacking someone like a race or an ethnicity and you have like a stick figure that represents them, then that can still violate. So if you have a little cartoon imagery of a Christian figure, like a little stick figure kicking a Muslim stick figure out of Europe, that violates the hate speech policy, because the stick figures are representing that characteristic, the ethnicity or the race. And so with gender, so there was a meme that showed that was calling certain genders a mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was like non-binary or something like that. He was saying, and it said this is a mental illness, but there was no stick figure. It was just the symbols.
Right.
So it's purely talking about the ideology. So Facebook backtracked, because for a while they're like, okay, allow it. It does not violate our policy. But then they backtracked and they said, actually, we're going to delete this. We know it does not violate the policy, but we're going to delete this. So once again, more exceptions. I have a list of like 30 examples here, but
Bro, it's human centipede.
yeah, it's human centipede.
These Bernie bros are
Unfortunately.
getting news from progressive websites, and these writers are getting their news from Facebook posts,
Yeah.
and then it's all being recycled over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Twitter is probably one of the worst things that ever happened to journalism, because it created a feedback loop among journalists where they just follow each other and share the same stories over and over again. And Facebook's algorithm essentially promoting intersectionality because it's got more keywords, more buzzwords, and it's shot content. So long as they allow it, it will continue to get worse. So here's what I think happens. These people on Facebook accidentally got sucked into this vortex.
Yeah.
Where content that was about police brutality and intersectionality was socially acceptable because racism bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it combined all these keywords, so it made money, and that was the perfect storm. These people were reading the stuff on Facebook, believed it all, then got hired at companies to moderate and said, oh, but these things are true. I see them all the time. That's okay. And then the journalists see the same thing and write the stories and create this feedback loop where they're all spinning away in their little human centipede vortex off in the corner while regular people are confused as to what is going on.
Yeah.
Because regular people aren't in that world. That's the craziest thing to me, is that like Joe Biden struggling to find that space between regular America and the Democrats is just, it's not there. And that's why he's trapped in this fracking thing. So you watched the debate, I assume.
Yeah, I watched the debate.
The reason Joe Biden lied and said we're going to ban fracking is because the activist left is in that vortex with these people at Facebook, with these journalists, and they believe insane things, and they're a tiny group of people, relatively. So Joe Biden, if he wants to be the Democratic nominee, you got to say the craziest thing imaginable. And that's why even Bernie was like going off the rails, and their policies kept getting crazier.
Yeah.
Then once Biden won, now he's got to talk to regular America again. And so he's like, no, I don't want to ban fracking. And they're like, here's a video of you saying it over and over again. So I can't imagine him winning. He chased. So here's what I'm hoping. Here's my optimism. I think you've got the desperate Democrats chasing after Twitter, the Twitterati left, who are in this human centipede vortex. And it's going to backfire on them because regular people don't live there. Regular people don't know what Joe Biden's on or talking about when he says these things. And I think that's why they're so desperate, to run. I think they're running against Trump, like anti-Trump. Joe Biden is not the candidate. The candidate is, do you like Trump or hate Trump?
Yeah.
And they're doing that because Joe Biden can't possibly please the Democrats. They are split up in a million different ways, and they'll never get back the moderates. In fact, the party seems to be shrinking based on Gallup's latest polling.
Yeah.
That the party affiliation for Democrats has gone way down. So we'll see how that plays out, I guess.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, Facebook's been involved in the elections. They've certainly taken a central role. And it's weird because I saw this app I have where you get like a discount on your gasoline. It's called like Get Upside. And I saw this little notification that popped up and then it disappeared. It's like, hey, if you vote, we'll give you 10 cents off per gallon. I'm like, oh, I'm going to take that to the Attorney General in Arizona. Yeah. Same thing with Schlotzsky's. If they can't offer you a Schlotzsky sandwich shop.
Yeah, I'm familiar. They offered money something?
A while back, like they were offering a free sandwich if you bring in your voted sticker, which violates Arizona law.
Yeah.
So that's been my biggest complaint is like this entire
Schlotzsky's
time.
is so good.
It's such a good sandwich. They
not
really
fair.
should give you a free sandwich. They should change change election law.
Yeah.
So that's my thing is like, if Schlotzsky's can get in trouble for that, look what Facebook's doing on a global scale. I was moderating content in Latin America, in Venezuela, in Mexico, the Mexican presidential election. I saw some, content about Spain. Facebook has training decks for Poland, for Taiwan, for like every country imaginable. Like in Poland, they freaking like Facebook shut down their Independence Day march every year because they called it like hate speech. So the amount of, and they're always purging these like nationalist groups in Spain or in Europe. And so I just think that, you know, the amount of power they have and influence they have is immense, and they're using all of it to try to influence this election in the name of, you know, protecting against hate speech.
It's a feedback loop, and it's going to implode at some point because the things they believe are getting more and more unhinged, and it literally doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like when you see the degree to which, I'll put it this way. Ocasio-Cortez gets 400,000 concurrent viewers on her Twitch stream.
Yeah, I heard about that.
This is the future of politicians.
Dude.
This woman, with all due respect, I respect that she was a bartender, and it's part of the American dream, you know, that anybody can be a politician. It's for, of, and by the people. So you don't got to be the smartest person in the world. You don't got to be rich, and that's pretty incredible. But man, does she not know anything about what she's doing? The bills that she's gotten passed have been like renaming post offices. And yet she still gets all of these leftists screaming and cheering for her. And I was talking to my friend, this guy I know earlier. There's a viral post by Sophia Narwitz of all of these leftist blue checks mocking Trump for saying coyotes were bringing kids over the border. Mm-hmm. Coyote, of course, is the name of the smugglers who bring people across the border.
Yeah.
All of these people thought that Trump was literally talking about coyotes carrying children, like the dingo, you know, the dingo ate my baby or whatever. It was a combination of ignorance and arrogance. And then when I see AOC, and I see her getting 400,000 Twitch stream views, I'm just like, our politicians of the future, it's going to be idiocracy. Mm-hmm. They're going to be influencers who know nothing, but man, can they get those views? Because she won her primary. She might not win re-election. She probably will. Mm-hmm. You know, because there are still Republicans, and maybe I really doubt it. She's going to win. And that's crazy because what has she done other than rename some post offices and then offer up ridiculous policies? No, she's an influencer. She's got 10 million. Hot, though. She's got 10 million followers on Twitter. Sure, that's part of being an influencer.
She can dance.
She dances. Yeah. And you take someone who has no idea what's going on. We are going to have politicians who are literally going to have flame wars on Twitter, and that's going to be at no policy discussion whatsoever.
Well, they should have a term limit then. In and out. If you don't do anything too bad, do something with your time. Don't waste my time.
I don't think that's the issue. I think the issue is people don't vote based on policy. They're voting based on Orange Man bad. They're voting based on who I like or don't like.
That's how Reagan got in too. He was famous. He was a B-list actor.
But who was Reagan running against in '84? Do you know?
George Bush Sr.
Was it
Mondale?
Mondale. It was like a horrible campaign.
Yeah.
And what we've seen with Nixon as well is that there are these, when things go too far left, it does snap back. So maybe we're secretly going to see this big Trump wave, and everyone's going to be shocked, and the polls are going to be wrong.
I think so.
But what I kind of see happening in the future is the left is being wound up into this psychotic space, and it's so insane that policy can never be argued. That's why they're running Joe Biden, and that's why he hides in the basement. Because if Joe Biden comes out, they're going to be like, wait a minute, I disagree with that. So better just hide him and then say, you hate Trump though, right? The politicians we're going to have in the future are going to be people who are like, I have no idea policy, but man, left, woo! And they're going to be like, yeah left. And it's going to be literal tribe, it's going to make teams.
Well, it's like the Hunger Games movie with Pan Am and Katniss Everdeen.
Seriously.
What was her name? Lawrence, the actress.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence, yeah. And, you know, you have Pan Am, you have Cornelius Snow, and they're having like nonstop parties in the Capitol. They have no clue what's going on in the rest of the country. Exactly. And then they celebrate, you know, people dying,
right,
and competing against each other, killing each other, in a barbaric fashion.
Have you seen the movie Idiocracy?
No.
Mike Judge is a prophet. The president of do you know what it's about? Have you heard about it?
No. So
there's this average guy, and it's played by Luke Wilson, and he does this trial for like a stasis. He's in the army and he volunteers, I guess, for the stasis thing. I don't know if he volunteered. He was like useless. Mm-hmm. So they were like, here's something you can do: sleep for a year. So the project was to put him in this chamber, put him to sleep for a year, wake him up. And it was him and a prostitute who got, you know, put in this program. Mm-hmm. But I guess he mentions, like, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, because of bureaucracy and a loss of funding, they like moved the stasis containers into like storage and forgot about it for 500 years. Then the machine finally kicks open. It's been 500 years. He wakes up, he's in the future. And now he's the smartest person in the world, because in the beginning of the movie, they explained that evolution wasn't favoring those who were the most skilled. Humanity had reached a point where evolution just rewarded those who reproduced the most. And then it shows this really funny scene where, like, this football player is like, he wins a football game and he goes, I'm going to do you. I'm going to do you. And then it shows like his family tree getting bigger and bigger, like babies popping up. Anyway, in the future, the president is a wrestler named Camacho, and he has no idea what he's doing. Everybody, like the water fountains all have Gatorade in them. Cool. And then they're watering their crops with Gatorade. So there's a huge famine and they don't know why. And he's like, you know, when Luke Wilson is an average guy, he's not very smart. Yeah. He's just like, have you tried watering them? And they're like, water? Like from a toilet? And they laugh at him. What's funny about that is it's an older movie, but seeing the people laugh at him when he says, try watering the plants. And they're like, from a toilet, you're so dumb. Like, that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Yeah. When people go on Twitter and go, can you believe Trump said coyote? They start laughing and high-fiving each other. You've got some high-profile left-wing activists that are saying these things. And it's like, we're in idiocracy. We're like
the food supply, man.
And there's
high fructose and aspartame's doing it to people.
On.
It's been 30 years.
That's nothing to do with why people are stupid.
Oh, that's a big part of why people are stupid.
No, people are stupid because they're being catered to on their baser instincts by social media and by video games. And instead of going out and actually engaging with the world, we are continually. It's like we're institutionalizing our children into every generation is more and more institutionalized. A kid goes to school and he's told what to do and he's given everything. Here's your lunch. Here's your homework. Do it. They come back. Now they're 22, they're 24, they're 26. They're getting out of college and they say, just tell me what to do. I've never done anything on my own. I'll just do what you tell me. Then they go on their internet and they hear their stupid tribalist garbage and they all laugh and giggle about how dumb they are, but they think they're smart. Those are the people who are voting right now. Yeah. And they might win. Ocasio-Cortez is the first step. And that's, I think, look, we've already got a World Wrestling Entertainment Hall of Famer president. So it's like Mike Judge called it. He called it a little too early, or he said it was going to happen way later. But I see this is where we're headed. Now, the optimism in this is that perhaps regular people aren't stupid. I mean, people are average. You know, George Carlin said, think about how stupid the average person is. Now realize half of them are stupider than that. Maybe regular people aren't that stupid and see what's going on and are like, I don't have anything to do with this. Yeah. But maybe, I don't know, maybe they are dumb and they're going to be like, Trump is bad and, you know, vote against him. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like Trump is the perfect person, you know, that we need. But I'll tell you this, when you've got Facebook and these big tech companies and they're manipulating everything and they're you know, everything they're doing, the only thing we can do right now is hope the Republicans win and then enact some 230 reform and change this. Otherwise, we will get a government run by people like Ocasio-Cortez who don't pass anything but stream video games on Twitch and do Instagram live streams, but clearly have no understanding of politics.
Yeah, it reminds me of the 1993 movie Demolition Man with Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone. Oh, man. Where in the future, they're cops, basically in the future. And this every time you curse or swear, there's this, it automatically finds you. It's like Alexa with it automatically like finds you. And
we
so
have one in the house.
You may have just turned around.
Oh no.
Alexa, stop. Sorry if I turn on your computer.
So yeah, it's like Demolition Man. I mean, we're going to live in a society it's built into the system. It's institutionalized where any hate speech is, you know, automatically filtered out and you have no freedom of expression. I mean, you have to understand this is not like a right versus left issue. I mean, I don't know if it's the AI that's doing it, but maybe it's us versus the AI. Maybe AI controls Facebook. Because people have asked me, what are Mark Zuckerberg's motives? Like, is he leftist? I don't know.
No, he's a robot.
Yeah, maybe he's a robot.
It reminds me of Terminator 2. Have you seen Terminator 2 with Skynet? When they meet the guy that's building the Skynet AI, and he's all like joyous about it and jubilant, and Zuckerberg has that same kind of like, oblivious optimism as to.
Have you seen
he's
Zuckerberg?
Literally building AI. Yeah, he's like on nootropics. He thinks he's doing. He thinks he's bringing everyone together and smiling and holding hands.
Hello, my name is Mark Zuckerberg, and I have created Facebook.
Like he's got to open. He's got to free that code. Shout out to all the code freers out there.
That literally doesn't. You always say that, but it doesn't even mean anything.
It's because you got to watch what the AI is doing while it's talking to itself. Otherwise, the AI is going to go haywire.
In terms of the AI, but
he's building AI. He's like one of the proponents of AI in the world right now.
So what, we're going to get Are we being purposefully wrapped up in this algorithm so that we all live in idiocracy joyfully?
I think we need to localize lawmaking.
Ignorance is bliss, baby.
So I think the top-down lawmaking is part of the problem with idiocracy, that we needed somebody above us telling us. I think at the local level, if we could make our laws locally.
Do that.
Well, more. Like, I don't want someone to decide how much taxes I have to pay from the top. That makes no sense.
What do you mean?
We as a community should decide how much I want to commit to my roadways in this community.
We do.
Well, we have like
you got to vote for
governor.
You got to vote for your comptroller and your
governor and your president and your 400 people to represent the
your first your block leader in Chicago, then your alderman, then your sheriffs, then your county commissioners, then your city council people, then your mayor, then your state senators.
Yeah, it's all a bunch of people above me.
No, listen.
You're telling me to vote for someone that has power over me, but I want to be the one that decides where my tax dollars go.
So run for office.
I want to just have that power.
Bro, what you don't understand,
I think we all should,
is that one of the problems in this country is that people stopped voting locally. They're like, blows my mind.
One of the problems is representative government.
People are like, I'm going to vote for Ocasio-Cortez to fix my neighborhood. She represents you to the federal government. What does she have to do with the Bronx?
She can't represent anybody. She
represents you to the federal government.
She tries and she fails.
Bro, what you don't understand is that when you vote for a congressperson, you're voting for someone to vote federally, not for your home.
Representative democracy is failing.
What you don't seem to understand is that when you vote for somebody, when you want your streets cleaned, you vote for your city councilman who says, I will clean the streets. Or you run for city council on cleaning the streets. We have all of that local stuff, but Americans don't do that anymore. They're voting for senators on local issues for federal issues. It makes no sense. They're like, this is what blows my mind about modern politics. You'll see a politician in Congress or the Senate, and they'll say, I'm going to go to Washington and I'm going to help you here by fixing this thing. It's like, well, hold on. Why are we talking about fixing this city and voting for a federal representative? That doesn't make sense. You want to fix the city, you got to vote for the locals to do the local thing.
I think we could cut that part out. I mean, the technology is good enough. We don't need someone above us unless you don't want to participate and you want to give away your power. But why would you hire someone to represent you when you can just represent yourself?
I guess the question is, why do you think someone's above you?
Well, if you vote someone to have the power over you to do, and a lot of times it could just be menial work that you don't want to deal with.
They're public servants,
right? That whole
this is not the issue.
Like, I'm a public servant. I could be. You could be. We could all be like voting on our local,
direct democracy
jurisdiction.
Doesn't work.
Well, I mean, with the right technology, maybe it would. But I don't like.
The issue
mob mentality. I don't like mob mentality.
That's why it wouldn't work. So you elect a representative who's supposed to have a better understanding and represent your best interests and say something like,
and they don't.
I've got farmers over here and coal miners over here, and they disagree on this fundamental issue. Unfortunately, the one that has to be done is going to favor the coal miners. That's what we need to happen.
So there's this idea of there's actually a group on Facebook that I know, a few guys, and they have this idea called the Seasteading Nation. And so basically if they want to build their own independent nation in the ocean, in international waters. So they've built up designs on how to build their, the structure, whatever, and they'd have to deal with international politics. But if you're going to do that, if you're going to build your own little nation in international waters, you got to be careful about who you bring out there, because if there's enough crazy people, then things can get chaotic, right?
It's really difficult to make a functioning society.
Yeah,
it's extremely difficult, and we've done a pretty good job. But the problem is, I'm reminded of that video of the woman screaming into her phone, "We're losing our democracy." Well, she's right, but probably for the wrong reasons. We're losing our democracy because we're voting for people, and we've done it for decades. And all they do is they look at Joe Biden. I'm going to ban fracking. Then he gets on stage. Are you going to ban fracking? No, I didn't say that. You get Hillary Clinton going on stage and speaking with a Southern accent. You get Ocasio-Cortez going on stage, and now all of a sudden she's talking with a Latina accent, and she's like, but that's my first language. Yeah, but you don't talk that way. You're talking that way now. We have video of you. You're just manipulating people. We have politicians who have decided just to say whatever they need to say to get elected. Mm-hmm. And then what do we get? AOC is supposed to represent this new wave of young upstarts who care. She doesn't. She doesn't do anything. She renames some post offices, and then she goes and does Twitch and activism, and she talks about getting rid of farting cows, none of which is realistic or is going to help anybody. She tries to implement this radical social economic change in the Green New Deal, which is more about the economy than it is about the environment, using the environment as a cudgel. We have politicians that just don't care.
Here's something. So Cortez makes a decision and makes a vote about something. then the people she represents 70,000 people. What if those
750?
What if those 750,000 people all voted on an app, and then that vote was tallied, and instead of having someone like Cortez there, there's just that vote goes into effect?
Because that would just be direct democracy.
Well, on some level.
And I feel like that term democracy also is just being thrown out there a lot. And I don't even know if people understand what democracy means, because everyone's like, save democracy. Don't let Trump defeat democracy, or democracy in darkness from the Washington Post. But to your example, I think using an app, that's a good way to interact with people, I think. But that is more direct democracy and not so much a republic.
But is it worse than having one person, Cortez, just making the decision? Like, I'd rather give the decision to the crowd.
Why? The crowd will then storm to some random person's house and then burn it down because they thought little girls were inside and
yeah,
they
but
weren't.
Giving one human the power over 750,000 people's lives is less effective than giving those 750,000 people the decision.
Ocasio-Cortez represents a district to the federal government.
She fails to represent them, by the way.
Do you know what that means?
She ineffectively represents them.
Do you know what that means?
Yeah, people vote her in, and then she goes and makes decisions on their behalf.
No. She makes decisions at the federal level that affect the country, not her specific district.
On these people's behalf.
Yes. Okay.
Well,
so what it sounds like you're not understanding is that when a politician comes out for Congress and says, I'm going to clean up our district and do good. No, you're not. You're going to Congress at the federal level. You're going to vote on war and healthcare and things that will affect the greater nation. If you want to fix your district, vote locally, but people don't do this anymore.
What if, so she's going to cast a federal vote on like something. Why wouldn't you not just take the tally of those people that she was representing and then cast that as the vote for the federal
Because direct
thing?
democracy doesn't work. And that's why we have a constitutional republic with democratically elected
Constitutional
representatives.
republics don't work.
It's
Not at this scale.
It's the best system that the world has devised so
I
far.
agree, but we can improve it.
Sure, but how?
With technology, by
But
using apps
all
and
you're
stuff.
doing is saying, I found a new way to do direct democracy, which doesn't work.
Well, I mean, you still have
It's
sections.
like like playing Among Us, and then you vote out the person, then you kill the wrong person.
Right, exactly.
The new video game called
Yeah.
Among Us.
Well, it's actually an old video game. Yeah.
You still have like communities that have to come together to vote. So, but you'd still have, I think, locales of people. So
We have local politics, we have state level politics, we have city level politics, we have county level politics. We've got regional coalitions between states, and then we got the federal level. What's happening in this country right now is the internet has removed localities out. They're gone. Local news is gone. Why? Because I'm just going to go to the New York Times and I'm going to read about Trump. Well,
Yeah.
did you know that a water main broke on 37th Street in your small town and now it's flooding and people are going to national sources for news? They're not talking to their neighbors anymore. They're not voting for local politicians. Corruption will run amok. Like it's at the local level. The internet has kind of digitized, in a sense, our political world, so that instead of focusing on my neighbor, threw poop in my yard. I'm angry about this. We should make that illegal. He shouldn't be allowed to do that. And so I'm going to vote for a guy who's going to pass that law to make that illegal. Instead, what's happening is they're like, someone's polluting in my backyard. It's my neighbor, and he dumped a big old bucket of poop. So I'm going to vote for a federal politician to go and vote on whether we should go to war with in Afghanistan. It has nothing to do with what's happening in your backyard. So what ends up happening is, in California, you get one party control because people are like Democrat, and the Democrats at the local level do literally nothing. Then they vote for federal level politicians to go do things at the federal government level who don't do anything for California. So San Francisco, for instance, you got Nancy Pelosi. She represents San Francisco to the federal government. She's not going to clean up San Francisco. Her city's in ruins because people don't care. They don't do anything. You got a bunch of people that just don't know, don't care, and they're voting D or voting R, and that's where we are headed. That's it.
Yeah.
Facebook contributes to that.
Yeah, Facebook can influence on a local level. So here's an example. So on September 27th, 2019, there was a post that was given to us as content moderators, and it was having to do with cops. So if I have a photo of a cop, I post a photo of a cop doing an arrest, all right? I'm standing there watching, take a photo of him, post it on Facebook, and I put the caption, "This cop is a pig." Should that be allowed on Facebook? I don't know. But Facebook's policy says if there's a private individual, this cop's not a public figure, they're not famous. If there's a private individual, I have a photo of them, I cannot compare them to an animal. So that gets deleted no matter what. So,
Really?
Yeah, so if I put a photo of someone who's not famous, like my neighbor, and I say, this person's a pig, if I compare him to an inferior animal, that gets deleted.
What's inferior?
what animals are inferior.
I don't know. What if I say it was a grizzly bear?
That's probably not inferior.
This guy's a grizzly bear.
Those are superior.
Yeah, those are superior. That
Are they?
Yeah, they
I'm
are.
actually from Alaska, so I take offense to that statement.
Totally
This guy's a
interpretable.
moose. Is a moose inferior?
I don't
Mooses.
I think it's a moose.
Mooses?
Moose. Yeah,
Yeah.
I should know that.
What about giraffe?
Giraffe.
No, because think about it. Like, it's silly, right?
Yeah,
Would that be considered an insult? I don't know. Giraffes, they're pretty.
They're pretty
It's up
cool.
to the
beast.
moderator.
and
Yeah,
that's how
man.
nuanced the policy is, and there's a lot of gray area, and we try to all align and action things a certain way. But this exception, they said now from moving forward as of September 27th. So we're talking about Facebook's preventing hate on the platform, right? But here they're allowing more hate. They're saying we're going to allow calling cops pigs, and the only reason why was, quote, that is because of how the term is used in the NA market, North American market. So that was the justification for their decision to allow more attacks on cops. The only way that post of a Facebook of a cop getting called a pig, the only way it could get taken down is if that cop went to every single post and reported it himself with a name and face match.
Well then, how
So
about we do?
yeah.
We're gonna go super chats.
Okay.
Because we
You're
went
way
a little.
over.
Yeah, well, you know these
Ooh,
things
gotta
happen.
flesh this
Good
local
times.
democracy thing out.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
Not Curtis says, I want to vote Trump mainly in spite of the media and Democrats, but also because of the peace deals. However, I can't stand him when words are coming out of his mouth.
Oh, I'm so with you, dude.
Not like my vote matters. I live in California. Your vote definitely
Your
matters
vote
in
always
California.
matters.
If every single Republican in every jurisdiction voted, they would probably beat every Democrat.
But
This is what
you
people don't
flip it.
realize about AOC. When she won, I think she got like 180,000 votes, and there's something like 200,000 Republicans. If every Republican went out and voted, they'd win. And then the whole district would be like, how did this happen? Well, it's because people voted.
Yeah.
But people don't actually vote, so, we'll see how things play out. I tell you what, I hear you. Vote if you want to vote, but your vote matters wherever you are. The only reason your vote doesn't matter is because people think it doesn't matter, so they don't vote. You got to be enfranchised. El Diablo says early voting is for chumps. Change my mind. Sure, but Democrats are winning right now, and that's going to rile them up.
Dude,
maybe
Biden said that he's going to end the oil industry.
he did.
And all those people that voted
crazy.
for him that are like, what?
What? Come
Imagine
again?
you
Come
voted
again.
early in Pennsylvania, and you're like, I don't like Trump, and then Biden comes out a week later.
my gosh.
By the way, you should have
Yikes.
waited for the debate because I'm going to end the oil industry, and you're like, but I'm going
gosh.
to lose my job. Can I change my vote? Apparently, people were Google searching change vote like crazy, and they were Google searching change vote to Republican like crazy.
Wow.
Joe Biden said he's going to end the oil industry.
He said a lot of stupid stuff last night.
That's
Well,
crazy.
Yeah, I think Trump did a good job in playing to trying to get Biden riled up. And towards the last half hour, Biden was, I think he was losing some steam. He was stuttering a little bit more. Rio Grande. I think
Yeah.
he was stuttering in that Rio Grande. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are going to want to change their votes.
Hydro says, Tim, you say you get more views than CNN and other mainstream media. And if that is so, why would so many people not know about Hunter's laptop? I've never said that. I said I get around 55% of CNN's views on YouTube only. But YouTube, with their TV views and YouTube views combined, is like 3 or 4 times the views I get. Still, it's not bad for my channels.
Yeah.
Go Away says, Tim, look up the Great Reset. Biden's talking points are coming from the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab. I do not know who that is, but I'll check it out. Katie says, Tim, we don't always agree, but at least you are a journalist that is researching both sides to get the truth. We need more journalists like you. Appreciate it. Let's see. There's a you are amazing emoji. I like that. All right. Let's see. Aaron Freeman says, PA court sides with Democrats. Signatures don't have to match. Opening door to full fraud like Al Franken and the pizza box missing votes that made their way for Obamacare. Yep. We are going to have one heck of a wild ride on in about 10 days.
It's going to be fun.
Also, don't forget to smash the like button if you haven't already.
share,
I really
like.
appreciate it. Let's see. Zerg says, Biden, you should have told Americans the truth. Don't panic. Trump, do you remember the toilet paper? What, the panic? Here we go. The Flaming Gamer says, Caitlyn Bennett meme appears to be a lie. The oldest post I can find of the image is on Reddit in a random post completely unrelated to Bennett. Yeah. That's why you just, I tell people, just don't care about what they say because they're making things up. Like, what are you going to do? People are going to post fake stuff. Let them post fake stuff.
Yeah.
Charming Person says, I had a vision. Biden and Putin were attempting to resurrect Stalin, but failed. The spirit of Marx, talking through AOC, told them they'd been lacking 2 ingredients. Tubin seed and Trump's blood. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's a great dream. Dan Larkin says, Tim, you're wrong about conservative prominence on Facebook. Jeremy Boring, CEO of Daily Wire, did a video about this just 2 days ago on the Daily Wire YouTube channel. I highly suggest you all watch it. I'll check it out.
Jeremy's smart. He didn't go to high school, or he didn't graduate, I don't think.
Let's see. Timothy Barsati says, censorship has seemed to backfire because of the Streisand effect. So why do they keep censoring posts? Are they too stupid, arrogant, or are they actively helping some of these stories gain legs?
That's a good point. That's a valid point.
What do you think? Like, let's ban this so that people hear about it.
I know, right? Like when they banned InfoWars, it was like an emergency update. Yeah, who knows?
Noni Perry says, the problem with the Expensify email is that as an employee, I have to use that. My employer mandates it. So when I get that email, the hand of my own employer is complicit in the political message. Yeah, I'd be livid. I'd quit. If like I worked for a company and they were like, we're going to issue a big message about Biden, I'd be like, I'll walk out that door and then do it. Okay, later, and I'll walk out the door. Whatever, man.
What's funny, Tim, is one of my trainers, when I first started as a content moderator, one of my trainers was open about our political views. She said that Obama was her Patronus charm.
What?
Read another book.
Oh my gosh, I hate it so much.
Millennials are like, I read Harry Potter once.
And the Hunger Games.
That totally ruins Harry Potter for me.
Seriously.
What is this? Royal Canadian Moose says, prepare to put on your tinfoil hats, folks. What if book sales and speaking engagements are how they launder money to the corrupt politicians? Let's be real. How many people would read, let alone pay for something Joe Biden wrote? I mean, that's not even a conspiracy theory.
It's 100%.
You have warehouses full of books. They'll write a book. Someone will buy, 500,000, and they'll say it's for an event or something. They'll put it in a warehouse, and then that money goes to the publisher, and you get a percentage.
Yep.
And they can charge like whatever they want for speeches. I think Hillary Clinton was like $100,000 a speech or something.
I think she's gone down a lot in value.
And by the way, Tim, I am working on a book. It's going to be called The Behind the Mask of Facebook. And so it should be coming out in the next couple months.
Oh,
that's gonna be awesome.
You mentioned an organization you had too. What is that?
Yeah, so the Hartwig Foundation for Free Speech is an Arizona nonprofit corporation I formed last month. And so I'm trying to get 501c3 status. But yeah, you can go to ryanhartwig.org and learn more about it. But I'm looking to just be more active and be an activist as far as big tech goes and censorship, because I feel like this, even if whoever wins in the next couple of weeks, whether it's Trump or Biden, we still need people to speak out about censorship.
Definitely. Justin Gunning says, actually, you can change your vote. If you vote again, it just deletes the first vote cast. Look into this. Encourage voters to change to Trump. I believe that is 100% incorrect, and do not vote twice. That's super illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah, super illegal. Don't do that.
You should look into it, though, if you are interested.
Yeah, we'll figure out how you need to go about the rules properly to make sure your vote is accurately cast. If, whatever happens, just talk to your people, but don't vote twice.
Consult your local election officials.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Don't take advice from us or anybody in the super chats.
Or Facebook.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Claymore says, if President Trump were to get the Nobel Prize and you were invited to the dinner, would you wear a suit? I'm betting on not. I would not wear a suit.
Would you wear a beanie?
Yes, I would. I would go wearing my clothes, and I would say, dude, I got invited to the Clinton Foundation Gala, black tie affair. And I said, I'm not wearing a black tie. And I said, you can't come. I said, I'm not coming. And I did not go. Could you imagine that? They invited me to that thing. And I was like, nah, you can't make me do it.
Come on, man.
Talk about I wonder if I could have got, I would have made tons of connections, tons of high profile personalities, schmoozed with all these big wigs and millionaires, probably would have given me money and like, here, do these things. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to wear your clothes. Get out of here. The African says, hey, Chads and Lass, out of everything from last night's debate, there was one thing that stuck with me. Trump's been busting his butt making peace deals across the globe. What the hell is Biden thinking, saying that all that crap he did about North Korea? Does he want war? Yes, he compared Kim Jong-un to Hitler. So now if he gets elected, we're going to have no relationship with North Korea at all. Talk about making everything worse. Not only that, Biden said we had a good relationship with Hitler.
Yeah.
Are you nuts? Talk about a moron.
They tried to before he invaded the Sudetenland. They gave him Neville Chamberlain. They called it appeasement. They were trying to be on his good. Everyone actually was Time Man of the Year, Hitler.
Yeah.
And what was it, 33, I think? Something like that?
Yeah, it was 33.
Yeah.
Yeah, the world loved him at first.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's see. What is this? Kyle says, anyone checking out their local Trump donators? I'm 2 doors down from a proud 9K woman.
Whoa.
9K. Like, you can't donate that much. Oh, actually, yeah. Over the years, you can, yeah. Thinking of dropping off some flowers and a friendly warning about the website. IDK about presentation, since I don't want to spook, are probably a bad idea. If
Yeah, I
people's
wouldn't.
private information gets released, you should not be acting upon it in any way. I would not appreciate that.
Keep her in your thoughts.
That's
I
something
guess.
that I also concur with. So there are some people in my video release. I obviously filmed my coworkers, and their names were first and last names were released. And one of my coworkers actually was talking about how she wanted to accept the Iran bounty, the $80 million from Iran to assassinate Trump. And she was speaking about that. And, people, I don't encourage doxing at all. So, I mean, it's horrible that she got some hate for that, but I think that's understandable to a certain extent. But in any other country, if you were speaking out against someone, the president, the state might take action. So I don't know if the Secret Service investigated those claims, but that I think privacy is very important. We shouldn't dox people. That's also part of Facebook's policy. It's written into their policy.
Trunk Driver says, Tim, how could you support Trump when he tried to coup Venezuela and he is sanctioning Iran and staying in Syria for the oil and printing money like a madman and expanding Big Brother? So my understanding about the Venezuela coup thing is I think you're referring to those guys who got captured. Like they showed up on some boats and got caught.
Is he talking about Juan Guaido? So Juan Guaido is supposedly going to run against for an election, and then, but you need to know that every single Latin American country, except for maybe Mexico, supported Juan Guaido as the legitimate president of Venezuela.
Venezuela is a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. Like I've been to Venezuela, they got no food. Yeah. I went there, and there's wealthier areas. But man, some of these pro-Venezuela journalists put out these Potemkin Village pieces, and I'm like, dude, I went to the malls there. It was crazy. Yeah. Just empty stores everywhere.
Yeah, the theory is that the American sanctions caused the government to crumble, and then they blamed it on Maduro.
BS. They nationalized, like, I think they recently nationalized like airlines, or like, and so all the airlines leave. Yeah. Dude, if you've got a company doing a service and you're like, oh, by the way, we're taking that company, they're gonna be like, I'm out later. And then here's what happens every time with socialists. You get a bunch of farmers, right? And they're like, farmers shouldn't own farms, so we're seizing your farm and we're going to put the workers in charge. And the workers are like, I don't know how to run a farm. And then they run out of food. That's what happens. They're like, we're going to take over the oil industry. That way the government gets all the profits. Good luck running the oil industry. You have no idea how to do it. So they don't. And then Anyway, I want to answer this. Not to get into Venezuela politics. I don't know enough about the coup of Venezuela, but I'm not a fan if that's the case, and that's a good point of criticism. Sanctioning Iran, I'm not opposed to sanctions. I think sanctions are an excellent way of going about putting pressure on foreign countries instead of going to war. Staying in Syria for the oil, as far as I know, Trump tried leaving completely, and he got attacked by the left and the right, Democrats and Republicans, trying to stop him from doing it. So then he just blatantly was like, okay, we're going to keep him there to guard the oil. And I think he did that as kind of a smack in the face to the establishment. I'm going to let everybody know exactly what we're doing there. That I like, though I would like our troops to be gone from there. He's printing money like a madman, and that's horrible. And expanding Big Brother. I don't know what reference expanding Big Brother is, but I'll tell you this. How can I vote for him? Banning critical race theory, shutting down the violent leftist riots, 4 historic peace agreements, withdrawing troops to the Middle East. I'll take it over Joe Biden, who would do... Listen, Trump's not great. He's got a lot of bad things about him. But Joe Biden, we had 8 years of Obama. And what did we get? More war, an escalation. And then they handed off this conflict to Donald Trump. Kids in cages? Obama. So listen, listen, I don't like voting for the lesser of two evils. And I've said over and over again that I wouldn't vote for Trump if that was the case. But I don't think Trump is the lesser of two evils at this point. I think he's kind of okay. I'll take 4 historic peace agreements. I'm happy with that.
Can I interject my 2 thoughts? My 2 cents. I literally have 2 thoughts, and then we can kind of wrap up. The reason I'm voting for Trump is because I don't care about the deficit anymore. That used to be one of my biggest issues. My biggest issue is the pursuit of human life, which is very, very important to me. And that extends to the Middle East, which is Tim's deal. So I just want to let you guys know, if you are concerned about the deficit and the cost, it's more important that we have a country to worry about the deficit for than we don't.
Yeah, I think we're facing dire straits no matter what.
Yeah.
But we've got but banning critical race theory. These are some of the things that need to happen that I think will start reversing the problem. So I think Trump will be a net positive in the long run. Lawson Harrison says, get Ryan Dawson on your show ASAP. Don't buy into the crap spewed about him being a loon or whatever. He is a wealth of knowledge in the Middle East and everything relevant about politics. I do not know who he is. We'll
look him up.
Regan says, hey, Tim, thank you for keeping journalism alive. Don't always agree, but we both know and I can't say that name. Unar says, AZ boys are in the house. On another note, the downhill skate scene is super far left because they are a bunch of college kids who complain about capitalism and Afro individuals who think we are freaking nuts doing 60 miles an hour downhill on pieces of wood with wheels. I'll tell you this, it seems like pro skateboarders either don't care or are right-leaning. Like I've got people hitting me up. Yeah, man. Skateboarders.
Yeah, I think you were talking about that in one of the previous shows. You were talking about...
You know what it is? It's not the right-leaning. It's that whatever's happening right now, you've got people who are left libertarian joining the ranks of the right. That's why I'm really annoyed when everyone's like, Antifa's left libertarian. No, they aren't. They're violent authoritarians. They go around beating people to instill their will on them.
Yeah.
That's not libertarian at all.
Yeah.
No, the left libertarians are like, leave me alone, man. I want to go skate. You know, like, dude, skateboarders will work minimum wage jobs so they can rent a one-bedroom apartment with 5 people living in it so that they can all work 1 day a week and skate the rest of the week. That's super left libertarian, as hippie as you get. These people are all like, wow, these people are crazy. They should leave me alone. I just want to skate. So they're like, I'm getting hit up by these people like crazy.
Yeah. Let's
see. Alternative JK says, Biden mentioned in debates while VP, China was defending South Korea from North Korea. If true, this raises questions if President Xi is in ties with the South Korean president. In fact, the South Korean government is proposing their Green New Deal. Interesting. Trunk Driver says, what about Trump betraying Assange? What about Stephen Miller having ties to VDARE? What do you think of Stephen Miller and VDARE, bro? I don't know a whole lot about VDARE at all.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, Ecuador betrayed Assange, right? Because they...
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because the new president came in and then they... They wouldn't let him stay in the
yes,
Ecuadorian
you are correct. Trump, I wouldn't say Trump betrayed Assange. I would say Trump is enacting standard foreign policy against the man, which is wrong, and he should pardon him. But I think Trump's perspective on this is Julian Assange knows exactly what happened with WikiLeaks and the Democrat emails and whether or not a particular individual was a source. I think Trump made the wrong move. I think Trump should have just pardoned Assange and then hoped for the best. Instead, what we know, at least according to a lot of this testimony and stories that have come out, Trump wanted Assange to say who was behind the leaks because Trump knows it wasn't Russia, and Assange could prove it wasn't Russia, and because Assange doesn't want to compromise his organization and his sources won't reveal that information. And think about, I think Trump's view is if Julian Assange came out and just said who the source was, it would cripple the establishment politicians in this country and their entire narrative.
I don't think it would. I think they'd be like, he's lying. And then the media would just be like, he's lying.
Yeah, probably.
And he'd bury his organization for no reason.
That's why Trump played the wrong move.
Yeah.
And Trump should pardon him. I don't know much about Stephen Miller or whatever. Daniel Irving says, love the show, Tim. Please shout out the fundraiser I'm helping produce tomorrow. It's for DMD. Details on Facebook at Inspiration on Wheels. 6-hour live show. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, we're getting a bunch of super chats popping in now. Well, we will read just a couple more.
Uber chat.
Uber chat.
How do you say chat in German?
Uber chat.
I don't know.
Super
Let's
chat.
find out.
Elia says, support you, Tim. Thank you for your daily segments. Trump 2020. Appreciate it. Jath says, I wrote an article for you. Here's an excerpt. The polls are a way to put a blinder over the eyes of the American people so they are shocked. They gave them a catastrophe they never saw coming, and they went to war. Austin Trammell says, my friend just told me she's voting for Biden because Trump bad. She can't name a thing he has done bad other than media talking points. How can I possibly change her mind? I don't want her to vote away her rights. Let me tell you all, Persuasion 101. In persuasion, the first thing you never do is approach someone as an adversary. The first thing you need to do is rapport. So when you're talking to someone like Ryan here, you're right-leaning. Are you going to vote for Trump?
Yeah.
So if I didn't want you to vote for Trump, the first thing you do, it's the basics of persuasion is rapport, extreme, and turn. The first thing is I would be like, yeah, bro, high five. Like I'm all about it. You know, Trump 2020, MAGA, all that stuff. Rapport immediately makes the other person feel comfortable around you, like they're like me and I'm safe. It's a psychological tribalist function of the human mind or whatever. The second thing you do is called the extreme. After you agree with them, you offer up a positive proposition that is too extreme for them to agree with. You say something like, the reason you're voting for Donald Trump is because he committed atrocity and you love that he committed atrocity. And then this other person will be like, oh no, I'm not all about that. Then you give them the turn, which is you say, well, okay, well, I mean, fine, I guess that one's bad, but he's still pretty good. What you've done there is, as a friend, you've gotten them to reject their own opinion, or at least a portion of it. You can never convince someone overnight. These people have been inundated by media over and over again and propaganda. So that will never just change their mind outright. But that's like it's part of sales. When we used to do fundraising for nonprofits, the smart people who are good at it, they understood these concepts. It's one of the reasons I hated doing this job, because it just became plastic. You're not actually talking to people and explaining what you think and what you want to do. But the gist of it is, you tell them, you respect them. Yeah, Biden's great, all that good stuff. Then you say something that Biden's done. And you say either, you know what, I'm glad that he was cutting deals with these Chinese companies, you know? I mean, like, think about it. If our president is indebted to the Chinese Communist Party, there won't be a war. And you guys read about Thucydides' trap, right? I understand they're torturing the Uyghur Muslims and all that stuff. So that kind of extreme position, and you can get really extreme with it, will make the average person be like, I don't agree with that. And then you say, okay, well, I guess Biden's not that great, but I mean, I still like him. And then you make the other person change their mind. It's a manipulation thing. I'm not actually recommending doing it. It's just something I have to explain because it's what the nonprofits do. That's like the key function of how nonprofits fundraise. Yep. I used to be a director of one of these companies, or at a bunch of them, actually. Kargush says, Tim, do you think the Durham report will yield any significant indictments? I do not. I think everyone's getting all riled up, just like the left did with Russiagate, and it's going to result in nothing. Let's see. We got a couple more. Let's see. Jason Savorn says, why not address today's media strategy of propaganda being similar to the strategies used by Joseph Goebbels in ushering Hitler to power? I mean, is it? Goebbels? Yeah. Is it similar?
I don't know.
Goebbels. Oh, I said that he invaded the Sudetenland. I want to take that back. Neville Chamberlain gave Hitler the Sudetenland. Then he invaded Poland. Everybody declared war on him.
All right, let's see. Nate says, hey, Tim and crew, longtime fans to Occupy. I would love to see Dylan Radigan on your show. I would too, but he retired. He's a farmer now.
Oh, man. Damn it.
Truck Driver says, thanks for answering and not running. Much respect for that. VDare is a straight-up neo-Nazi newsletter. Trump Top 8 has ties to VDare and Richard Spencer. Another one of Trump's people, Julia Hahn, also has ties. You know, I don't know anything about that. Toys Read Book says, would you guys support a completely verified social platform where only people who identified to open but can have whatever handle only one account? I'm down for whatever, but I mean, like, it's all about critical mass for these platforms. Otherwise, no one wants to come on them.
So it's like linked to your government ID, basically?
Yeah.
Like you can only have one account?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want the government having access to those. Because at some point, the government would have to have access to your social media account. And then that's just kind of a slippery slope.
We were talking about anonymous anonymous social media thing where you have peer verification, where you'll have like, if enough people can say like, oh yeah, this account likes dogs, this account likes video games, then when you say that this is who you are, they can see that 70 of your peers have acknowledged that you are who you say you are, without ever having to acknowledge who you are.
Okay.
All right, here's the last one. Let's see. What is that one?
Is it the last one?
The last super chat.
Yes.
Man Spider says Aiden Paladin needs to come on the show. I know Aiden. I will reach out to Aiden Paladin and we'll see what happens.
Very cool.
That being said, hey Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great conversation. We didn't go through most of your notes. You got a ton, but it was good anyway.
Something in particular you wanted to mention? I saw you looking at your notes at one point.
I mean, I came a little bit over prepared. There's so much there. I mean, there's so much evidence. I mean, the video you saw with Project Veritas was just like scratching the surface. And there were some conversations I wanted to include in the video that didn't make it into the video. But just the last thing I want to say, it's kind of funny, is this is a post from October 17th. So Mark Zuckerberg gave a speech at Georgetown University this past October, or a year ago. So they gave us instructions like, heads up, Mark Zuckerberg live speech. He's going to underscore the company's commitment to giving people a voice, ... And then in that same paragraph, they're telling us, but due to the nature of this commentary of feedback, we may see escalations or an increase in user reports of hate speech. They wanted to provide a heads up on this. So like, hey, Zuckerberg's going to talk about giving people a voice. Make sure you delete any hate speech. So, I mean, it just shows you where their heart is. They're really not concerned about giving people a voice.
Free speech is bad. So the left would report him for saying free speech. Yeah. Well, anyway, man, thanks for joining us. Do you have a social media you want to mention or anything?
So Twitter is at Real Ryan Hartwig, and then also on Instagram, the same handle. And then I'm also on Gab and Parler. And you can go to ryanhartwig.org.
Cool.
is my domain.
Right on, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
And of course, you can follow me on YouTube at youtube.com/Timcast and youtube.com/TimcastNews, my other two channels. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Timcast, of course. You can follow at Ian Crossland.
Yes, at Ian Crossland.
And basically everywhere.
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 Pretty much everywhere.
And at Sour Patch Lids. That's
Sour Patch Lids. LYDS.
LYDS. So we do the show Monday through Friday live. We'll be back Monday. Make sure you smash that like button on the way out. Subscribe. And we'll have clips up from this show all throughout tomorrow. Very shareable segments. So we'll hit key points. That's the point of the clips for the most part. You can be like, hey, here's a thing you need to see. And share with your friends if you think this stuff's important. Because we got a dude sitting right here basically saying, yeah, they're interfering in our elections, man. But anyway, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all Monday at 8 p.m. Adios, everybody.